Distinguished Mr. Alexander Kraus, distinguished Mr. Georg List, distinguished members, IAMTS, and participants online. Good morning, good evening. In this summer season, I would like to welcome you to the IAMTS 2021 Symposium, where we will conduct in-depth discussions on the global intelligent networked vehicle high-level autonomous driving safety verification validation technology and actively promote the international exchange and cooperation process. I'm Wu Zhixing, Deputy General Manager of CATARC and the Vice Chairman of IAMTS. On behalf of CATARC and the IAMTS, I would like to extend a warm welcome and sincere thanks to all the IAMTS members and the industry colleagues who are participating in this symposium online. Intelligence vehicle technology is an important direction for the deep integration of industrialization and information technology, an important foundation for intelligent transportation with the development of smart technology, a new round of technological revolution and industrial changes, reshaping the global innovation map and reshaping the global economic structure. The mass production of advanced intelligent networked vehicle is imminent, and the industry standard is ready to be launched. And intelligent networked vehicle technology goes hand in hand to boost the comprehensive landing of intelligent vehicles. With rapid development of smart connected cars, all technologies have made great progress, and we need more stringent safety tests so that we can improve the regulatory mechanism. China has taken the lead in releasing the Intelligent Network Vehicle Access Management Guide, which provides a reference for the global supervision management of high-level and advanced intelligent networked vehicles. This year's symposium will focus on self-driving, safety validation and verification technology to promote the healthy and orderly development of the global intelligence networked vehicle industry. IAMTS aims to integrate global resources and build a cooperative framework for the networked vehicles, and have developed more than 30 members since the establishment in 2019. The IAMTS Symposium is the annual industry event, and we invite internationally renowned automotive companies, industry organizations, and experts to participate in the symposium to share the research progress, enhance international cooperation. In this conference, we are honored to invite experts from TÜV SAE International, AVL University of Michigan's MCLI Testbed, Geely Automotive, ITIC, Florida Polytechnic University, and the Tongji University to participate in the discussion. In the special context of the global post-pandemic era, CATARC will continue to perform the duties of Vice Chairman of IAMTS, actively explore the new ideas and opportunities for the development of the automotive industry, insist on playing the function as a think tank, as a third party in the industry, and to promote international technical exchanges. Together with the IAMTS, we will write a new chapter for the automotive industry and ecology. Last but not least, I would like to thank all of you for your support of the symposium, and I wish the symposium a great success. Thank you.
Okay, many thanks to Dr. Wu Zhixing for showing the gratitude from CATARC. We would be involved more to help for the harmonization of the global activities. Since the IAMTS was founded, more than 30 active members have been involved in order to bring together testing consumers and providers at a global scale and develop an international portfolio. Next, let's give a welcome to Mr. Alexander Kraus, the Senior Vice President of Mobility TÜV Süd and the Chairman of the IAMTS Executive Committee, and Mr. Georg List, the Vice President, Corporate Strategy of AVL, and the Chairman of Technical Leadership Committee, to deliver their video presentations on the development and the journey of IAMTS since 2019.
So the video is played from the last meeting, so I'm just going to share it quickly as well. Once again. Wait, do that again.
If someone could give me an information if you can see my screen.
I see you. I see screen.
Yeah, screen is
all right. So then It's my pleasure to welcome everybody. My name is Alex Kraus. In my real life, I'm Senior Vice President at TÜV Süd, a global testing, inspection, and certification company. But I would like to say in my passionate life, I'm also the chairman of the executive committee of the International Alliance for Mobility Testing and Standardization. And that's practically an alliance to internationally harmonize standardization, deployment of connected and automated vehicles. And again, I welcome everybody. And it's quite an impressive setup. Let's see how this works with this virtual symposium. But let's straight dive into it. I believe all of you are pretty aware that we have a vision that through technology we will reach mobility emitting zero emissions with zero accidents, no fatalities, and also reduction of traffic congestion. And again, this can only be achieved through developing and deploying the right technologies that will either intermodal or through the right functionality enable us to reach and work towards that vision. The thing is with technology, and especially with this technology disruption we are seeing, that the complexity of technology is rapidly increasing. And just to give you an example, so we could talk also about complexity of supply chains, of complexity of integrating sensors into a subsystem, of complexity of validation. But just, I think this is pretty impressive to see just a comparison of software lines, so mission critical software lines in Windows 10 compared to a modern car. Without any special level 3, 4, 5 automatization, it's just a high-end modern car. And comparing that, eliminating all comments at Windows 10 at compile time, Windows 10 has 27 to 50 million lines of executable code. It's all on one motherboard. It's all in one place with the motherboard plus graphic cards plus application. It tops up to 100 million estimated line of codes, and that's all in one place. Compare it to the middle column of that presentation here, of that slide. As I said, a modern car has more than 50 different sensors in 50 different sensors in 15 sensor sets, and that is controlled by 28 or even more microcontrollers. We have several communication area networks on the vehicle, and that all ends up in a huge amount of 100 gigabytes of data per hour. And that is also about an estimated distribution of 100 million lines of code. And a reboot is not an option while driving. So that shows the complexity. And comparing on the right side, doing a complexity benchmark, a modern high-end car has about 10 times more software lines of code than a Boeing 787, 50 times more than a F-22 Raptor fighter jet, or even 100 times more than a space shuttle. And if we concentrate that on 10 million lines of mission-critical software code, it has 3 million more than a Boeing 787 and 8 million more than an F-22. And that shows that this technology is not only complex today, the complexity is increasing. Just to work towards the vision I showed in the first picture. At the end, and we see it in the newspapers, this results in accidents, or can result in accidents. And I took the example again of cybersecurity here, of vehicles that are interconnected with infrastructure, or from vehicle to vehicle, or just from the physical vehicle to the back-end service of the vehicle OEM. We see that this is causing additional, and I would say for the traditional automotive industry, additional safety threats. And the question is, what do we need to do in order to deploy connected automated vehicles in a scalable and safe way. And that's key, and that's a key sentence, I would say, because technology development is extremely expensive. You all know that. Investing into the infrastructures like test beds that are required to validate safety of those vehicles, that is as well extremely expensive. And it only makes sense at the end, not only to reach that vision I showed in the beginning, but also to return on that investment. We need to enable deployment of that vehicles and that technology in a scalable way. And at the end, it needs to be safe, because if accidents happen, people get killed or harmed, no one will trust those technologies, and then it's a no-brainer. It doesn't make any sense to develop them, right? One key subject as well is that technology development is accelerating. I mean, we just saw the disruption of technology in vehicles to achieve new functionalities, but on the other side, it's more and more software-based, and those developments are not only running, not in waterfall development only, but in agile developments, like software development is done. You can receive several software updates, and this technology development is really accelerating. It's going rapidly forward in the different areas of the world, and the bottleneck is one of the bottlenecks is that the standards and guidelines we would need to release and prove those technologies safe and release them and deploy them into the field in a bigger manner. This is not synchronized. It's not synchronized in development speed, technology versus standards and guidelines, and it's not synchronized globally from a geographical perspective. So in China, development is going on of those guidelines and standards. It's in Europe, it's going on. In the US, it's going on. So we have a diversity, a vast diversity of different standards and regulations. And the third part, which is not harmonized, is what you see here is a patchwork. So we cannot only deal with, let's say, ECE R154 to 56 for software updates, for lane keep assist systems, or for cybersecurity, because this is only some functionalities. At the end, we want to have safe, complete systems being able to be deployed to the global markets in a safe way. So to cover that bottleneck, or to widen that bottleneck, we need a paradigm change. I'm pretty sure that many of you are also aware that the traditional automotive development and mobility development is pretty silo. So there is no vertical interconnection, or not really a vertical interconnection. The supply chains are super verticalized, and there are no margins left. But we need to open up, and what I want to say is, at the end, what I mean with paradigm change is we need to collaborate at the right points. And I'm not talking about collaboration or destroying USPs or differentiation through technology development. That still needs to be there. I'm talking about collaboration at the standardization development side. And this is why we founded the IAMTS. I will give you an introduction to the team key members a little bit later as well, but we founded IAMTS, the International Alliance for Mobility Testing and Standardization, in 2018. And it took us quite some time and efforts to make it a mature organization, which we are now. And our mission and vision that we gave ourselves is to develop an accepted framework of testing scenarios, validation methodologies and tools, certification methodologies, and the required terminology. And we do that as a community. What I mean with community is we do it as a global team. You will see that in a minute as well. And that community is sharing best practices in working groups. Georg List will present that a little bit later as the head of the Technical Leadership Committee. And out of that best practices, we are sharing and digesting and processing. We want to ensure, and we are already ensuring, consistent, replicable, reliable testing and support of a global harmonization of standards and certification methodologies. And that is addressing not only the vehicle itself, but also the required infrastructures like test beds for physical and virtual testing and data usage and so on and so on. And I'm really proud that besides any global crises we had to tackle with COVID-19 and also political crises in the last years, from 2018 to today, we created a pretty unique and powerful international setup with many members you can see here. And I'm also proud to say that many of those organizations are across the globe. You will see that also on the next slide, but are also collaborating despite any crises and so on. So just some statistics you can see here, and I think this is pretty interesting because it shows the diversity of our stakeholders and our members, but it also shows that we have to probably get more members in Asia, as you can see. So from a geographical perspective, we are pretty strong in Europe with 50% of our stakeholders in IAMTS, which is a membership-based non-profit organization. So no one of us is earning any money with this. We are really doing this with the vision and the perspective of enabling new technologies. So all the membership fees we are gaining, we are using to create content, to do marketing, publications, and hopefully to meet one day again in person, as we did in the first years. But we have 50% from across Europe. We are pretty strong in the United States as well, and we are proud having also very strong and important members from Asia. And you can see also the stakeholder missions, so the core competency of our members. We are quite good equipped with organizations that are developing tools, are in the simulation business or in the testing business, like testbed operators. We have research institutions, which is pretty important because we have to do still research work, 24%. And we have expert institutions, of course, as an example, experts in pavement or proving ground design or development, which is pretty important because those proving grounds or test beds are one of the key investment areas of those validation of new technologies. And last but not least, we have standards and regulation and certification institutions like CATARC from China, IEEE or SAE International or VDTÜV, just to name a few. So from the size of our stakeholders, we have startup organizations and small organizations up to large companies like NVIDIA as an example, or the TÜV organizations or AVL. It's also my honor, and I mentioned that at the end, we are getting stronger with each single member that is onboarding. And I would like to take half a minute to welcome new members to the team that, despite the difficult situation, joined us within this year, which is the CICV from China. We have the University from Marmara in Istanbul, Turkey. We have the Transtech Group. We have D-Space, who just joined us. We have the IOTA Foundation, and we have DLR from Germany, who joined us as well within this year. And again, as the chairman of IAMTS and one of the co-founders, I warmly welcome you to the team, and I'm pretty sure you will benefit from the work of IAMTS. But of course, our members in IAMTS and the global community is very much looking forward to receiving your valuable contribution into our working groups, of course. And at the end, I have to say that coming to people is a big fun for me because I'm an automotive engineer, so I like, of course, I'm German, so I have to be an automotive engineer, and that's one of my passions, but an even bigger passion is for me working with people. And I strongly believe that people make the difference. So whatever business model or idea you have, it can be the best idea or the best business model or the best idea, like something like an alliance for mobility testing and standardization. It's the people that make the difference. And without the right people, it is all nothing. And with the right people, it's everything. And so give me another 2 to 5 minutes time to introduce you the senior leadership team. And that's a special pleasure for me because all those people I'm going to introduce now are really making a big difference and are next to their daily jobs contributing to IAMTS in their free time, lifetime, I would say, during nights, during weekends, during holiday. And the first one I would like to mention is Professor Dr. Wu. from CATARC. He's the vice president of CATARC based in China, and he's my very valuable vice chairman of the executive committee of IAMTS. And you can see his personal statement and to see also his contact data. So very valuable and proud having such a high-ranking member of CATARC on board. I also would like to give a big thank you and introduce you Shuai, who is our representative of CATARC in the executive committee. And I know he has always a little bit painful meetings because it's the big issue you are having when you're working globally, that someone always have to pay the price of having meetings at night, so night shift meetings. And most of the times this is Shuai and his colleague Bolin. So thank you. And it's really a pleasure having you on board. And I also would like to introduce you the head of the TÜV Association, Richard Goebbels, always a big supporter of not only myself, but also of IAMTS. And I'm also proud having him in the leadership team because that brings all the different TÜV organizations under one roof and makes sure we can speak with one voice, which is crucial for IAMTS. So, and he is the representative of strategic member of the VD-TÜV Association, as I said, and also the link to the CETA, which is the Global International Motor Vehicle Inspection Committee. And this is actually a globally acting committee dealing with how to validate and safety of automated and connected vehicles or of vehicles itself across the whole life cycle. And one of, I have to say, from the first minute, supporter and co-founder of SAE, not of SAE, but of IAMTS, is John Tininelli. He's a co-founder of IAMTS. In 2018, we met first time and instantly we said, let's do this with IAMTS. And he's our secretary and treasurer, and also to John, who cannot be here at the moment due to an injury, but I'm pretty sure he will join us later. He's representing SAE International and giving great contribution to the IAMTS team. And another one I would like to introduce is Hermann Brandt from IEEE. And he is representing IEEE as operationally in our leadership team. Konstantinos Karachalios, board member of IEEE. I'm going to meet him today, by the way, as well this evening. He is also contributing on a membership level. And Georg is also running working group 4 as a vice leader and supports Georg as the vice chairman of the technical leadership committee. And pretty, I have to say, also an honor for me to also introduce Dr. Joachim Teiber. He's the founder of IAMTS. He had the original idea. I can very well remember when he called me in 2018, and we met, I think, in 2016 first time. And he called me and said, Alex, I have an idea, so let's do something together. And this was the birth minute of IAMTS. And he's representing not only as a founder himself, of course, as a strong contributor, but also ITIC. And by the way, ITIC and Joachim were together with Pete from SAE IDC preparing and doing all the administration and preparation of this meeting, of this symposium. So last but not least, I would like to introduce you Georg List. He's the head of corporate strategy of AVL, a very well-known organization. And he's also someone who joined from almost the first day and supported the idea of IAMTS and the progress of IAMTS. And he's the chairman of the technical leadership committee. And this is the point of time where I want to say, before I hand over Georg, there are many more people that are contributing. I hope for your understanding that I would love to do so, cannot introduce everybody here, but we will share the presentations you see today, and you can see all the details about the key contributors in that presentation slide deck. So Georg, that's Now
thanks,
my
Alex.
final word, and I hand over to you and stop sharing. So I hope that this goes smooth now with sharing your.
Yeah, I already started sharing. So let's see if my screen comes up. I will try that again.
At least I can see you.
Good.
All
Yes.
right, here we go.
See my slide?
Your stage, Georg.
Oh, thank you very much, Alex. Yeah, it's great to be here. What I want to present is on behalf of the Technical Leadership Committee, the kind of work we do, which is really the most important thing, is what content do we produce and how do we produce it. As chairman of the Technical Leadership Committee, as Alex said so rightly, this is my night job, becoming day job very quickly over time. In my other roles, I'm at AVL in Austria, responsible for corporate strategy, also for testing of ADAS for research and technology. And I would want to also reflect on what Alex has shown before. I'm really, really grateful and really excited to work with members who are really experts, who have deep expertise, have a cross-regional perspective that they want to bring in, and that they want to also bridge between regions, and that drive solutions. This is really what we're all about, and it is gratifying to be working on that. What I'd like to do is just show you in a few sentences or in a few slides where we came from, the challenges that we saw out there to tackle, and a little bit how we are tackling them, and then come to kind of for a working group. Now, when we started out in 2018, we did realize that big that challenged the whole industry, all the members, and that we felt very strongly about that need addressing. One is physical testing world, proving grounds, test beds, etc. The second one is obviously there is a lot of simulation, and data is of utmost importance. The whole ADAS validation area is something that's very scenario based. That is we approach. Thirdly, we need to move into something that is for highly automated vehicles. We need to move into certification. Very difficult, and I'll highlight a few issues that we identified early on. It's interesting because these issues change. These issues change very dynamically, also in part because of the work we do. But if we start with the physical testing world, there is a lot of proving ground guidance and very very sophisticated and well-established proving grounds. But it's hard to know what are the world, where to do which kind of testing. So there is very little transparency and comparability, and eventually and certification. If we look at the data and the scenario world, the use of scenarios as such is a challenge. And then also topics with the data, the mass of data that we're dealing with, the also regionality of the data, and this cross-regional that also pops up. Different regions look at data and scenarios somewhat differently, and that doesn't make all our lives, as members, but also practitioners in this ADAS area, it doesn't make our lives easier. And finally, we will have to come viable certification scenarios for highly automated vehicles, and that includes type scenario, but also the periodic inspection. That includes how is simulation going to figure in this world of certification, because it is a very important element of validation. And also how we're going to deal with cybersecurity in the realm of ADAS certification. Now,
I think there's a little bit video problem. I'm just gonna reshare it again. Just give me 1 second. So,
nevertheless, nearly the most important thing is time and again in our rounds at IAMTS, where different stakeholders sit together from different regions and compare notes and compare practices. One of the key drivers of complexity and costs that is also slowing us down is the cross-regional differences. And this is something where the life kicks in of our working groups that recruit themselves from the different regions and from different expertise areas and try to address this. I mean, at the end of the day, global is very important to a technology that, as Alex already described it. If we don't have global reach and global scale, then this is not going to pay for itself. And solutions to this, to how to deal with the regional differences. Now, structured ourselves from these three areas that I was talking about before, plus the cross-regionality. Working groups. Four working groups that you see on this page. And I'll start quickly by introducing those four, but I won't take the dynamite in the content of the working groups, because they are going to present themselves as work group leaders later on, but also so if we look at working group 1, then there we deal with this data world, the scenario world, and we were thinking about what is it that we can do about global test scenarios and libraries, and how can we bridge differences between different types, also different types of how data is kept and used. And here our are leading the charge, are leading this work group, and you will see Bolin later on in about 2 and a half talk about his content. The second working group deals with this physical testing. So we thought it is a good idea to start with creating a database of proving, and we want to describe the competencies of proving ground. And if you think about, and if you describe, and if you find for proving grounds, then you're very quickly in finding parameters that eventually also lead to certification. So this is a team here has worked on a very sophisticated and smart way of characterizing competencies that different proving grounds can offer to users. This one is led by Kay, who is going to talk about this from TÜV from DL is leading the third working group that is dealing with simulation and how it's to this real test, the physical testing. But they started out with about even the and how the simulation process can be verified up to the point of being audited, and with a very successful already branching out and communicating into the regulatory world, which Tobias is going to talk about later on. Working group 4, we found it more recently, really looking across scenarios, across test proving grounds, across the simulation. How do we insert cybersecurity into these? And what do we? Cybersecurity is recognized as the important element that it will become in highly automated vehicles, as they have vectors to introduce faults and actually make a big danger highly automated vehicles. So this is led by our colleagues from Israel, Eddie from Cybellum, who will be talking about this and introducing. And the fifth one, I did want to mention, this is not a working group yet, but it's a project that really deals with direct certification of highly automated vehicles. Richard Goebbels was mentioned before. The VD-TÜV is taking lead on this one. 4 working groups and a study group, soon to be a working group. And this is what we want to do as a technical leadership and in the working groups. Our objectives really are, we have members with a lot of expertise. This is what we want to build on. And they have experiences of how to do things. So first of all, we came up we came together as members and what are the most difficult things that we need to tackle, and let's pick those challenging topics that really have an impact also on us. And the second, in each of the working groups, we realized very early on, we need to collaborate across regions. Like Alex said, very painful to do because somebody always has to get a very close. But that's the value driver that we really can bring. Then you see here also that when experts come together and discuss how they are doing different things, then they come up with their current practices. And since they have a lot of expertise, we're learning from each other, but we're also extracting best practices and trying to communicate those. And that gives the possibility to drive what we call practicable harmonization. And that we want to feed into standardization and certification. This is really the objective that we have as technical leadership committee, and the working groups are working towards these goals. Now, if we look at the going to do next, and this is 21 still for the remainder and 22, there's a lot of publications that are that we're going to launch. Some have. As I said, further topics in the working groups will pick up. So we're always extending the that we find into the working groups and tackling those. We will start pushing content together with a specific working group, and then continue to bring harmonization content into regulatory steps. We have members that are involved in all over the world, and this is a good route for IAMTS content to be also adopted into regulatory. And we've had good progress on ASAM, on UNECE, also working with various other regulatory bodies already to practicable harmonization that we see from industry into these rounds. And then finally, Joachim is going to talk about later on. We've also constructed our own roadmap and are keeping this updated. So I call it a dynamic roadmap. But obviously, we make progress along this roadmap that we see for the coming years. How to tackle the challenges that testing and standardization of mobility. And with that, thank you very much.
If someone could give me an information.
Many thanks to the video brought by TÜV and AVL. Both Alex and Gil had lost dedications to IAMTS. And the next, let's welcome Dr. Zhou Boya from CATARC to give his video presentation on thoughts and practice of intelligent driving testing and assessment in China.
IAMTS 成员单位的各位专家，大家
The
好。
experts and the members IAMTS. I'm from CATARC. My name is Zhou Boya. And I'm from the technology department. I'm the head of Automotive Test and Assessment Management Center. Here, I'd like to introduce you the thoughts and the practice of intelligent driving testing and assessment in China. I'd like to briefly introduce myself. I'm from CATARC, and here I'm responsible for the test, assessment, and operation and research and development work. So my presentation is divided into 3 parts. First of all, I'd like to give a brief introduction about CATARC and the CATC, that's the Assessment Center. CATARC was established in 1985. It is a central government level enterprise belonging to SASAC and a comprehensive science and technology enterprise with extensive influence in the automotive industry at home and China. Our mission is to lead the progress of auto industry and build China into a strong auto power. And in terms of our targets, we proposed 3 targets, including industry think tank most approved by the government, collaboration partner most respected in the industry, automotive organization most trusted by the public, career platform employees are the most proud of. So we are going to establish ourselves as an authoritative organization in the industry trusted by the clients. And our assessment center is a most authoritative third-party assessment organization in China automotive industry. So through the third-party assessment, and we provide the one-stop recommendations to the car buyers and to promote the advancement of automotive technologies in China. We have the CNCAP. So that's the new car assessment center, and the CCRT, that's the China Car Consumer Research and Test Program. And the CNCAP is based on the accident data source from CIDAS and the road scenarios in China, focusing on the great auto safety. The CATARC has implemented CNCAP from the aspects of driver and passenger safety, active safety, and pedestrian protection since 2006. And we have finished over 1,000 crash tests of 485 vehicle models, which substantially enhanced the vehicle safety technological level and improved the road traffic safety in China. And CCRT is focusing on the performance as driving experience, passenger healthiness, environment friendliness, and the comfort. So our position is that we would like to provide professional testing and assessment to guide the healthy development of auto industry in China and to satisfy the pursuit of our people for a better experience and to serve government, our clients, our consumers, and the industry. So the model of operation is that we would like to build an automotive assessment system based on consumer demand in an important way to promote technological progress. So basically, we would like to understand the Chinese consumers and users' requirements or scenarios and their features in the use of the car to develop the practical and the forward-looking testing method, and we use the test method to build one assessment system. And we make use of the assessment system to fill in the gap in the standardization and regulation so that those regulation systems can be recognized by the car makers in the industry. And our assessment rules and the standards can be introduced into the development of cars and the remodification of the cars so that we can guide the development of the technology. In our testing, we have these 4 unification. For example, the unified car selection, car purchasing, car assessment, and test result release and promotion. We use our own budget to procure the car and to do the test and development of the test standards and the release of the standards so that we can be objective in the test. We also rely on CATARC and its strong presence, labs, and test beds in China to conduct the testing and the validation. In the intelligent car industry, we have deployed numerous range of test resources that can support our full range of tests. Secondly, I would like to talk about the practice of ADAS test and assessment in China. A few words about ADAS. I believe I don't need to talk more about it. This has been attracting a lot more attention at home and abroad. It has a very large potential for future application. But today, according to our observation and judgment, in the ADAS is going to be serving as assistance under L2. While we are assessing the performance of the car, we need to also focus on whether the car can ensure the right use by the driver, and also do we have the risk prevention measures in place. When we talk about currently in China, in the Chinese market, there are some intelligence functions and the assistance driving systems in the cars, although to a certain degree they can avoid accidents, but for some corner scenarios, they cannot identify the response in time, which has resulted in some new and additional accidents scenarios, which has caused a lot of potential risks and threats to the users. On the other hand, in our market, there are some companies, they have this over or exaggerated advertisement of ADAS. So the drivers cannot correctly understand the functions or features, so they relied too much on the ADAS system, which is going to cause potential risk. So while we are validating and testing the ADAS system, first of all, so we need to ensure the right use and to ensure the safety of the driver. We can talk about the performance. So in addition to the performance of the car, we need to also pay attention to the monitoring by the driver, whether the driver can read the manual and the information in a correct way, and how to use the feature or function when the driver cannot use the function well and correctly, whether the car has enough features like to minimize the risk and to avoid collision. This has been included into the L2 certification. Actually, in 2020, we have published the first intelligent electric vehicle management rules to test the performance of electrification as well as the intelligence features of the cars. So in the intelligence, we test the intelligent driving and the intelligent cockpit. And for the intelligent driving, that's the very important part of today's discussion. And in terms of performance, we're going to be combined with the scenarios and the context in China to introduce special scenarios in addition to the specified scenarios and the specific scenarios. So we have introduced scenarios. For example, the accidents already happened. We have extracted that kind of scenarios. For example, constructions ahead, and how to identify and to recognize and whether the car can identify the response to that scenario. Then the car can give a prompt or to avoid the construction ahead and the obstacles. And we have the horizontal cars to see whether there is any prompt to the car users. And when there is something blockading in front of you, for example, the horizontal crossing by the passengers, and we are going to test whether the ADAS can identify and to respond to those specific scenarios. Secondly, we'll also test the L2 level, whether so. For example, the corner avoidance of risk in the corner, and when the car is driving at 80 kilometers per hour, whether it can detect the objects which is moving or which is stationary. This is also a very important testing scenarios we have introduced, like I said before. In addition to the performance testing, we also assess whether the drivers can use the features in a correct way. For example, the prompt, the expression of prompt, and the presentations on the dashboard. We are also assessing the monitoring by the drivers. For For example, the hands-off detection, the attention detection of the drivers. We have set indicators in all these dimensions. In fact, starting from 2020, we have formally implemented the CCRT IEV testing system. So far, we have made assessments of several car models officially. So from this radar map, we can see that at present in the Chinese market, so the intelligence cars, intelligence features are quite different from each other because so their logic of development and the capabilities are different from each other. So let's take the examples that we have tested. So some cars can present a very good performance overall, but their strategies can be very aggressive. And so they don't have they are weak in ensuring the monitoring of the drivers. For example, there are some potential risks from the misuse or misunderstanding by the drivers or users. Second, some cars perform very well in some classical scenarios, but in some special scenarios, for example, like the crossing by the drivers and the blocks in front of the car and etc. But they have done very good in ensuring the right use by the driver. So this is they have this very good balance in the performance of intelligence features and the right use by the drivers. And third, we have seen the excessive advertisement by the car makers. So they haven't been doing a good job in ensuring good driving experience, but they are belonging to below L2. So we can see this very clearly in our actual test. After those practices and the test starting from last year, we are absorbing the achievements from the studies, and we are developing some early stage of work of the advanced or L4 certification and assessment. I would like to introduce the principles and our reflections. Firstly, in order to develop the test regulations in China, the test cases should meet the characteristics of typical road trips and scenarios and traffic accidents in China, which means that we need to meet the typical roads in China. So that's the typical scenarios, as well as you need to meet the typical traffic accidents in China. That's the dangerous driving scenarios in China, which means that we are going to take into consideration of the road data collection and the traffic data and the accident data so that we can propose the typical and the corner scenarios. When we have decided the typical and the corner scenarios, then we can develop such a basic framework which can reflect the actual traffic and the road performance in China or in a specific region. So when we have decided the scenarios, we need to, with the help of simulation test and the real vehicle pretest, so that to decide the testing limits. And after we have developed the scenarios and what can be passed or what cannot be passed. So here we need to, so the test limit need to fit the local development of technologies, and we should be forward-looking and so that we can play a good role in the testing. So that for the L3 and above, that's the advanced automotive driving, autonomous driving. We should have more control process or control time, and also a higher percentage in the control and the test cases or test scenarios. It's more complicated, and we are, so in our assessment, while we are designing the scenarios, we need to include 3 scenarios like the task capacity, collaboration of traffic participants, and environmental impact, which is becoming ever more difficult. And we need to, so because if there is no participant on the road, do you have the pass capacity on the main road, ramp, channel, tool station, combined road, or crossroads? When you have this basic capability in your car, then we need to think about the second layer. We have collaboration of traffic participants. So we have new participants which is going to share the road with you, or we have other tools like the tricycles, the passengers, or bicycles. They're also driving on the road. So in this context, when we are interacting with those on the road, so do we have the pass capability on the car on the road? This is something that we need to design. Thirdly, when we have seen some changes in the environment, for example, the lighting or bad weather, in these circumstances, whether the car can effectively drive autonomously or to reduce the monitoring from the driver, which has reflected the capability of the car. The fourth principle is that when we have decided the scenarios, cases, evaluation systems, then we need to decide what kind of methodologies we need to use to make the test. Like the three-pillar testing system is very effective, which can be integrated organically to supplement each other very effectively. So in a closed test bed, we're going to test a typical scenario. So the pass capability of the car in that specific scenario, which rely on the facilities and infrastructure of the test bed. This is very important for the reliance and with the best replicability and the professionalism. So here, we are going to test scenarios with low level of threat or danger. So this is mainly the test for the performance of the car. And in the open road, we are going to test the continuous actual scenes to verify the subjective experience of the vehicle, especially ODD analysis, whether it can drive in a continuous way in the open road. And in this test scenario, test context, we need to think about the performance of the car in the actual scenario. Because we have this a very random working condition for the vehicle, for example, the handover rate and the test of other performances. In the meantime, we're going to test the subjective experience of the car, whether it can provide a good driving experience. And the third is that we test the simulation test. We test the dangerous and extreme scenarios to verify the safety capability of the vehicle.
Let's move on. Let's talk about in the test process what specific issues we will have. For example, what scenarios we will have. For example, when we are talking about the specific needs and the technology orientation, we will consider high speed and also urban driving, two scenarios. For example, main road, ramps, crossroads, and toll stations and the ramps. As for the urban driving, we will consider main road, crossroads, tunnel, and so forth. In the test grounds, we will have the already built scenarios to test whether the functions of the vehicles are ready. On the right-hand side, as we can see in the specific roads, on what about the continuous functions? This is what we'll consider. We'll try to test the vehicle's functions after a period of operation in the specific destination. In reaching the destination, what's the performance of autonomous driving of the vehicle? We'll consider efficiency, safety, and the frequency of overriding by driver. Now, what about parking? In parking, we will also have certain plans. In low-level parking, we also consider the driving path, in addition to parking in and parking out. For example, in parking the car for the driver and related issues, we will test the performance of the China-made products, whether the performance of the China have reached a certain international level. So what about machine on man takeover? And at that, we also have certain standards for evaluation. For example, a driver status abnormal takeover reminder. On a when to take over when threshold is exceeded. And we also see exit ODD takeover reminder. Performance is indeed important. We will also have to consider other scenarios. For example, in specific scenarios, we should enable drivers to take over or to override. For the driver to operate the vehicle, all these tests have to be carried out. In our opinion, with these and evaluation, we will try to enable the high-level autonomous driving with such functions. It's my great honor to be here, knowing all the experts here. We have been talking about certification and of high-level autonomous driving in China. We would also like to avail myself of this opportunity to discuss about the ways of evaluation and testing and the realities of testing. Such brainstorming will be very important for us to share the common scenarios and the common approaches. With that, we can reach consensus or reach outcomes. And with these outcomes, we can help different countries, regions, in their high-level autonomous and driving policy and implementation of management rules for vehicles. Our research efforts are designed to make sure that two goals will be attained. On the one hand, we will be the pioneer of the standards and rules in different regions. Number two, it can serve as an important grappling point or access point of internationalization. We consider both China scenarios. We also hope that we can learn from the best practice from the international community. The experience from the international community can also help China to make its own skills, technologies more sophisticated, and China can also apply its domestic skills beyond its borders. In that way, we will enjoy safer, more efficient, and more effective autonomous driven vehicles. That's it. Thank you. The sound is muted.
I'm sorry. Okay, many thanks to Dr. Zhou gave us very sound presentation about CCRT. And here I got two comments. First, if any online guests have any questions, you can just type in the chat window with our speakers. And second, you can just scan this code to join our WeChat group. Okay, next, let's welcome Mr. Wang Cheng from Chile. He is the head of ADAS project, and his speaking title is "What challenges does automotive OEM face with respect to level 4 certification?"
Sean, are you there?
Oh. Yes.
Okay.
Hello.
Great. The floor is yours.
Hi. One moment, I'll try to share that. Hello, everyone. Chen Wang here, speaking from Chile, GRI, and I hope everyone.
I only can see myself. So you're sharing the browser rather than the presentation. Can you share the presentation instead?
Does work well? I hope so.
I can see only myself. So you're sharing the browser, so I can only see my picture, profile picture.
Okay. But it looks good, all right?
No, I can't see your presentation. I can't.
No, we cannot see the presentation.
Yes.
Wait a moment.
So try to share the window with your presentation.
Yeah. Maybe
there you go.
Okay.
Thanks.
So hopefully you can see the PowerPoint in full screen mode.
Not yet full screen. I think you need to go on full screen or presentation mode.
I have done it. Hopefully it appears also.
Try to share the whole screen instead of. I think that's the problem.
I think the play mode will be okay. Just play this form.
Wait a moment.
播放模式。
现在是不好。
我试一下，不要紧，应该有方式。
Okay, that's good. Thanks.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you. Hello, everyone. Here's Wang Cheng speaking from Jili Research Institute in China. And it's very honored for me to join the conference today and give some topic which was invited by, especially by Mr. Lister from AVL. And we want to share some thinkings from us regarding challenges for the AD and namely autonomous driving development and validations, and also some cooperation work which we have been in cooperation with AVL, Australia, and China in the last years, which reflects our thinking. And to be honest, we have no answer to this topic regarding to the challenges what we have seen in this field. But we try to figure out what we have seen in the challenges and try to also get some our thinking and approach to solve these issues, and also hopefully to get some good feedback from your side. So one more sentence, Chen Wang here. Regarding myself, I'm in charge of the ADAS project and the solutions at GI and Jili, which for the Lincoln Go and Jili brands, and also have worked in the field of ADAS and autonomous driving more than 10 years in the last decade in Europe and China. So we begin with the presentation for today, and the first slide I want to show is the trends for the high mobility autonomous driving and the digitalization and electrification, which we know well in the last 10 years, which shows the big trend for the automobile industry. And for sure, autonomous driving play a very important role, especially also for the serious product development in the last decade. If we can remember and record the first product which was announced by Audi in Germany 2012, with the first approach for an TGP function with level 3. And now it's more than almost 10 years, and we see more and more technologies are really put into the vehicles nowadays, and it makes really this technology for autonomous driving ready. One thing we can see very interesting in the last 5 years, we have made some basically estimation how many sensors are installed in the car today. Average, we will have more than 5 cameras, 5 radars, and we do see also even in the next 2 years at least 1 or 3 LiDAR sensors will be installed in the car. Thanks to such rapid technology development, we still see with help of such technology development and component development, we will see really a good performed autonomous driving function could be realized in car, and which reflects also this really this high trend. So here we find some interesting picture to show this autonomous driving is not only and the history for today. Basically, it has also long and history. In the left side, this is the picture which was taken from the first World Conference in America in 1912. That times there was shown and a trend to foreseeing the traffic situation in 2020. That time, and the American thinks that time, sort of that time, in the future, all the traffic system will be fully equipped with fully autonomous driving transportations. On the left, on the right side, we see and also and the picture. This we can see also in some good, in some interesting ADAS conference. This is also an webinar size. Sorry. On the right side, reflects in the middle, 1945. This was an advancement from an American company, which shows how should life looks like in the highway. So that means autonomous driving is always a dream for the automobile industry, and we do see also the high benefit behind that. What is the benefit? For sure, autonomous driving will help to reduce the accident in the traffic. There's a many survey proves that if there are more than 15 autonomous driving in the traffic, it will reduce more than 200% the accident in the current traffic, which means help a lot of save a lot of cost and all the healthy. For sure, also autonomous driving will help to individual autonomy, which we see also could be interesting for the society. We see here with more and more older people, which not very maybe not so easy to drive the car, and we hope the autonomous driving will help them then in the near future. And if we take a look in the situation in China, we see really a highway heavy congestion and really a huge driving time cost in the traffic in a normal day. According to a lot of survey, average in China, people take at least 90 minutes every day in the congestion in the mega cities, which means more than 24 cities in China. And it means out of time and time cost for the people. And we do hope with autonomous driving and also advanced autonomous driving functions, they will help such topics. Based on that, we do see also a rapid movement in autonomous driving development in the last decade, as mentioned. We show one picture. This is already in 2017. It's let's say out of the time. But we do see there are more and more and startups, high-tech companies around the world, in China, USA, in Europe, get involved deeply in the autonomous driving industry. If we take a look today in the supplier chain, regardless of which kind of sensor types, what kind of software technology, what kind of high technology, you can see more than 2 or 3 really big supplier in this channel, regardless of whether this technology is really good enough or still in research phase. For example, there are more than now 10 leader good companies which will introduce their leader sensors today in the, on the market, which provide really a good performance. There are more and more high pixel camera system available, and also regarding the high computing platform, we do see more and more supplier get involved and and we have really many choice in this field. This kind of technology development help us to build really an good autonomous driving system, which could really make an human-like behavior, like what we expect. This is the technology, really, especially in the last 5 years, we can see clearly in the market. Meanwhile, there's also different opinions regarding what is the possibility for really highly autonomous driving, or namely in level 3, level 4, level 5 autonomous driving systems. Tesla and is one example to expect this autonomous driving will come in the near future. And meanwhile, there's also some announcement and voice from the research. See, this is still far away, and we need more than take it to really have this kind of technology into our life. And why there's different opinions, we see also the both sides. One side, thanks for the really high, quickly technology development, we see the basic technology goes right day by day and month by month, which could really provide a very good performance for the autonomous driving in different areas like highway and parking and the city. But there's really also, on the other side, there's not so much real could be a system in series product could be seen and feel by the customers. Then why there's this different opinions, we do see this because due to the high challenges for the series product development in this field, and especially also for the verification and validation for such system. What kind of challenges we see? We try to list some topics here as we have seen and feel clearly in the last years of the development as research. The firstly, things we need to consider for the autonomous driving development is the corner case. We all know there's so many corner cases we need to consider, but how to figure out what kind of corner cases, how to develop the system for such corner cases, and how to validate that. This is a topic we need to consider, and we do see as a big challenge. And in the last 5 years, we do see and more data-driven and AI-based algorithms are used to provide a very good performance for AD systems. But how basically an AI-based system is we call black box system. So how to validate a black box system in this field the second topic we do consider. The third thing is about perception reliability. We do know an autonomous driving system consists of 3 parts, namely the perception system, the decision system, and also actuation system. But the main challenge, or the more than 80% of the issues we do see in the perceptions, namely how many sensors and what kind of performance and the perceptions quality could be achieved by them. This is still a really high interesting topics in discussion in the autonomous driving topics. And finally, how to verificate and also validate such systems. This is the topics we see and the challenges in this field. One thing more regarding regulation and people adoption for the autonomous driving. Basically, we have an Vienna Convention which was announced in the 1968, which basically define what kind of technology requirement is for an vehicles which should be controlled and driven by the human driver. And this is always the basic thinking for how to design such a system which should be driven and controlled by the people. But if we try to replace the people, and namely the human driver, with a full autonomous driving system, what kind of technical requirement should be filled is still in really discussion in different areas. And there's some good approach try to illuminate it, but we do see also a lot of discussions requirement for such topics. And secondly, and as I mentioned, although in the last presentation, we see also how to get the customer get used to a fully autonomous driving system, to build trust and also to avoid the mistrust for such systems. This is also an open issue we need to consider if we want to adapt the high autonomous driving system to the normal vehicle industry case. The third thing and also the challenges which was always mentioned in the field of the autonomous driving is namely safety. But under safety, we are not only consider one kind of safety, but more types of safety topics. For example, functional safety is well known, which is well described and defined in the ISO 26262. But this kind of ISO just deal with the basic mistakes which could be caused by electric and electronic systems, namely, especially for electronic systems, also always holding for and mistake state for such component. So how to deal with the safety issues if the system, wholly electric system, are in all normal state? Is that good enough? We have indicated that not good enough, for example, for the perception system. So there's good intent with the safety of intended functionality. We try to deal with and address such problem issues. And besides them, there's also topics we need to consider what is really too well designed, and also to consider the traffic rules for the autonomous driving in public. Mobile has shows a responsibly sensitive safety model, which try to give some illumination in this field, but we do think there's more topics need to consider because this is a very complicated traffic systems we need to consider for the autonomous driving. And finally, cybersecurity is also a very important issue which need to consider. This is 4 well-known topics in the safety issues for the autonomous driving, but we do believe there's more topics behind them. If we take a look into each technology field or in the autonomous driving system. And also one thing more regarding the verification and validation for autonomous driving systems. We have picked up one definition in the ISO 26262 for the functional safety, which has well described and different test methodologies could be used, like require-based test, like photo inject test, like back-to-back test. So we do believe this kind of test could help us to validate the system in a systematic way. But if we consider how complex and what kind of time and material cost for to integrate such kind of test, this is the challenges we do see behind these topics. In this field, in this slide, we try to just show we have basically very good defined test methodology which could be used, but how to integrate such kind of test methodology into a serious product development, which could also meet a requirement for an time and cost requirement for a serious product development. This is challenging for us. And behind them, I think this was also well described in the last presentation by Mr. Dr. Zhou, to see how many situations should be considered and to be dealt with for autonomous driving validation. This is a well-known definition, we call it a situation disaster. If we really run for the most people, and also even hard for the most engineers to develop autonomous driving, they doing the programming behind the PCs and consider the highways maybe he drive every day, not more than 50 kilometers. But if we try to really integrate such system in public traffic, we must consider so many different situations of the world, regardless in China, USA, Europe, as we show, as shown here. And we see that is how to make a test methodology and validation methodology to make and possible full coverage for these situations. This is what we need to consider, and also a big challenge. This is good an approach which was introduced in Germany and in the research project Pegasus. They try to give indication how to make the validation for systems. And we do like to see this slide, and like shown. Basically, we could do a very good validation methodology, like to make the coverage. But if we don't do it really well, we will do a lot of tests, just like the black dots shown in the diagram, and which means not really reflect the limitations of the systems. And the main topic and the main aim for an validation is to identify system need to cover different use cases and situations, need to provide and full autonomy to make the verification efficiency. This kind of validation system should show good robustness and reliability to ensure the validation quality, which also should provide a high provision and safety metrics for the systems with a deliverable, measurable result. And this kind of metrics could be realized with an AI-based system. What could AI or let's say, what could be provided by such data-driven system? We see a lot of use cases in different fields in the last decade with different learning algorithms, especially in the computer vision field, in some kind of reinforced learning for do some behavior prediction and motion planning topics. And they have shown good performance in this kind of field and also with a deliverable precise result. Some basic thinking we want to introduce here, like example. One main topic for validation of the autonomous driving system is to set the validation target. And a good validation target for such system could be a human driving. And with an AI system, we could try to represent the human driving behavior and also get the behavior of the autonomous driving system and make a comparison to make such kind of validation purpose. That's one thinking which we think could use the AI-based approach to help the validation issue. To deal with the heavy situation disaster topic, as mentioned before, we see an holistic approach to make a good test coverage should be realized, and a data-driven approach will help us also to make a systematic situation coverage in the validation and the test method. This is the second use case we want to show briefly, like what we are looking for now to deal with such challenges. Based on that thinking, such keen thinkings, we have started some code development and research with AVL team, and this is a platform which was developed and introduced by AVL. It is called a scenario-based tool chain to prepare an evaluation of test strategy. It consists of many functional parts. For example, for extract and scenarios from the good data sources, it will make an input model setup based on ontology models to make and will describe the situation catalog. Based on that, it will make an automatically test case generation to deliver the full coverage test cases for the test system. And with a code simulation environment, it will execute all the tests systematically and automatically to provide a good validation system. With this kind of system, we do think it will help us to solve the complexity in the autonomous driving validation topics. As mentioned, here shows some detail which will describe the basic concept behind them. Normally, we could take some traditional test cases, like which was defined in different regulations, also like as shown here, like LKS. This kind of basic model will be described and transferred onto an ontology model, which will transfer all the test requirement in a semantic way. Based on this kind of semantic approach and with the support of this kind of tool, it will generate automatically all the necessary test cases which meet the test requirement. This kind of automatic generated test cases will be transferred automatically according to the defined format. What we have seen it also is already realized is in the Open Drive format, and also according to the open scenario description, which is a good standard format we could use to describe the situation and also the traffics. Finally, this kind of traffic and scenarios models with the predefined test cases will be delivered to automatically to an automatically tested systems, which was also delivered by ABL. This is we called an test case evaluation, which consists of many co-simulation systems, and finally this will provide us an automatically all the test result which meet the test coverage. Here shows some really basic details for this kind of requirement-based testing methodology. In the next three slides, we want to show one good advantage in this approach is using the ontology-based natural language specification to define and to categorize the situation description. We know this test case consists of how to describe the test conditions. What we can normally imagine under the description about the road, about the scenario, and also about the environment. And also although this kind of detailed description consists of more detailed element description, which describe what kind of road, what kind of vehicles, what kind of other traffic elements, and so on, are needed to be considered in this kind of test cases. With this kind of approach, we can describe and transfer all such kind of conditions in a format semantic language. With this kind of semantic configurable language, it will help us to systematically describe all the situations and the test conditions, and also help us to systematically generate all the elements which we need to be considered. And what's more, it's also important to transfer this kind of formal description test cases into an real standard scenario format, like Open Drive or Open Scenario. And with the help of this ontology-based toolchain, finally, it will help us, based from this approach, to generate all the test cases which reflect all the test cases which need to be considered systematically in these cases. The key technology behind them, we do see will help us to get the benefit and also to enhance validation efficiency, it's to use this kind of input model setup and ontology-based approach, which help us really to realize and formal representation of the knowledges and the situation descriptions. This is the one big technology and benefit we do see in this approach. Secondly, as mentioned, and high automation is really a higher requirement for a validation system for such autonomous driving systems. And based on the ontology-based situation description and highly automated generate will help us to generate all the possible test cases to meet the full coverage requirement, which also is very important and also big challenge for the validation for such systems. And finally, how to do all the maybe more than 1 million test cases in short time and with good result, and also help to make a good result overview and make this necessary statistics. This is also a good advantage which was provided in this tool, which was provided by AVL to help us to get the result, and namely the validation result quickly from the basic thinking. We try to show a good animation regarding these tools. We see this is a methodology based on the basic scenarios. It will realize all the possible test cases with the anesthetic and dynamic elements, and will be generated and automatically executed in short time, and finally to give a fully good result, which help us to make a quick and reliable validation for systems. So, and then I come to the last slide for today's presentation. Hopefully, you have got the main ideas what and for the topic today. And as mentioned before, we do see a lot of challenges in this field. We are very honored to get this possibility today to show the basic ideas what we have seen and we have also developed in the last time. And for any questions and discussions, you are welcome.
Okay. Many thanks to IAMTS needs perspective from OEM. And we all know the development of technology and the regulations are in constant all over the world. And we may wonder what the regulation difference is between China and Germany. So next, let's welcome Mr. Zhao Chongming from TÜV and Mr. Zhao Qidong from CATARC to present on how will the global regulatory framework for level 4 certification look like.
Chongming, are you there?
Yes. Yes, I'm here.
Okay,
yeah,
great.
So let's start. Okay. Good morning, good evening, everyone. Yeah, so my topic is how will be the regulatory framework for level 4 certification look like. So my name is Chongming Zhao, yeah, from TÜV Mobility. So today I will make the presentation together with my counterpart in CATARC, Qidong, yeah, so who will focus in the China, yeah, so we can provide you a whole picture about the global development of the certification for level 4 vehicle. Okay. Okay, so this is our agenda. Yeah, so I would like to briefly introduce the agenda for my presentation today. Yeah, at the beginning, I will give a very short introduction and an overview of autonomous driving. Then I will discuss the activities in the field of automated and connected driving at UMECE, the United States, China, and the European Union. So afterwards, I would like to show the special national path that Germany is taking to bring the level 4 vehicle on the public road. As we all know for sure, yeah, autonomous driving offers a wide range of benefits. The most important ones here are that driving on the road is becoming increasingly safe because of the system and accidents caused by human error can be avoided. So another issue is also the protection of the environment through the optimized vehicles and driving routes. So impaired people can reach destinations that were not possible before, as they don't have to rely on public transportation. So another benefit is the growth of the economy through new technology and the development. So this also creates new jobs, yeah, as we are part of it. However, there are still some obstacles to overcome for this to happen. But what does that mean from the point of view of test, inspection, and certification company? So like us as TÜV. Today, we look at individual vehicle for approvals. Yeah, in the future, they will no longer be sufficient due to networking. Yeah, for example, we will therefore have to look at intermodal mobility. So today, we look one-dimensionally at vehicle safety. Vehicles are inspected at defined periodic intervals, and for example, driver assistance systems are integrated electronically. In the future, however, this will no longer be possible. Yeah, it's cybersecurity, functional safety, and other topics that have not been included in the scope of periodic testing to today will have to be taken into account. Also, due to the constant changes and adaptations, it will not be enough to rely only on fixed time intervals. For this solution, it will be needed to enable and check continuously adaptation of the vehicle. But you can already see convergence and developments in this area, as you can see on the next slide. As you can see from the timeline above, yeah, more and more new technologies are being developed. However, yeah, the standards and the corresponding regulatory basis to be able to use the technologies on the public road are still missing. Yeah, however, the gap here is getting smaller and smaller. So example of this is the UMECE regulation number 157, which regulate automated land keeping system. A further example is the Act on Autonomous Driving and Autonomous Vehicles Approval and Operation Ordinance. So for short, it's AFGBV, yeah, in Germany. But what are the opportunities for level 4 vehicles internationally? Today, I would like to focus on Europe and the United States and only briefly touch on China. So later I will hand over to Qidong. So my colleagues will go into more details about the Asia market. In addition, I would like to show you how level 4 release can look like, yeah, using the upcoming German Act as an example. Okay, so as you can see here on the map, yeah, some kind of automated driving is possible all over the world. Yeah, for example, for testing purpose, few cases and individual cases, but so far there are no harmonized requirement and test procedure to roll out and introduce the technology across the borders of more than one country. However, the international stage of regulation and standardization is well on the way. to achieve this, which I would like to show you in the next few slides. Okay, so as the UMECE has already recognized for a successful rollout of new technology, it is necessary to define requirements for the technical system and also the human behavior. The legal act of the UMECE, Geneva and Vienna of 1949 and 1968 provides the framework for this. For this purpose, the UMECE defines technical requirement for such system in the WP29. Therefore, the Working Party has defined a framework document to create the necessary condition for a global harmonization to enable highly automated driving. It means level 3 to level 5. The special thing about it is that the development take place on the basis of 2 agreements. So it means agreement 58 and agreement 98. So this means that the created requirement and the test method can be applied internationally in all relevant market. So for this purpose, 13 key issues were created, and they are valid for all participating countries to establish a uniform process to achieve this global. Several working parties were established under the Working Party 29 of the UMECE. So one of them is the Working Party on Automated, Autonomous, and Connected Vehicle, for short is GRVA, which is umbrella of all related automated and connected driving activities within UMECE. So the GRVA, as I mentioned, includes 6 working groups and task forces. So this focus on functional requirements for automated driving function, the development of new assessment and test methods VMAT according to the new function requirements, the definition of requirement for system which collect the store vehicle data, the development requirement for cybersecurity and software update OTA, the further development of ACAS regulation, like higher speed and the requirement for advanced driver system. So Working Party number 1 also dealt with the requirement for autonomous vehicles. As example of this is the design of road signs and so on, for the traffic facility. The regulation for cybersecurity software update and automated lighting system has been already enforced since January 2021. So this year. In the following, I would like to briefly describe the regulation for ACAS in more details. With the UMECE regulation number 157, a framework for a type approval of a level 3 system has been created. So in short, it can be said that the system can be activated on freeways at a speed below 16 km/h and doesn't need further driver input. The regulation includes, among other, the following area: cybersecurity, software update, data storage, physical testing, and virtual method and complex electronic system. The respective requirements that should be verified by an approval authority or the technical service are briefly listed in the right-hand column. In general, these are the puzzle pieces that are also intended for future release of AD system. So this is the part of functional requirement for autonomous vehicle, and validation methods are also trying to close. Furthermore, it can be seen that these 2 working groups are following a similar path. On the left side, you can see that in general, the points from the VMAT and are closer to FRAD. So the VMAT has the job to develop a new assessment and test method approach to assess ADS in a home by setting additional methods to conventional ones. So the graphic shows the overall multi-pillar approach, which is aimed by the VMAT. So, but what does this mean? As you can see, the dashboard shows the new assessment test method, which become the input by the ODD description. This input defines the scenarios which will be tested virtually and physically according to the method in the blue box. So the requirement lead to the input for the audit scope shown in the yellow box. Another special feature is that the multi-pillar approach considers in-use monitoring. Yeah, this is very important during the operation to be able to continuously improve the process in summary. So the function requirement for AV and VMAT create an approach to test requirements. So furthermore, the multi-pillar approach extended and refined already existing test method for virtual proving ground and the real-world testing. Okay, then for United States, yeah. So here, in addition to the regulation of United States federal government, there are also requirements of individual states. The NHTSA specified minimum safety performance requirements for vehicle and equipment. The manufacturer must certify compliance before selling vehicle, but automated vehicle will not meet the current FMVSS requirement, but MHTSA can approve a limited number of exemptions from the regulation. So for example, a vehicle without mirrors, the individual states are regulating licensing and usage of vehicles. So this means that the test release is made by this. But the state should follow the recommendations from the federal government. So this means that there are no harmonized regulation for automated vehicle in the United States that applies throughout the country. In some states, the AVs are already in use. Yeah, in some only in testing is possible. However, there are also some applications here where safety drivers no longer need to be in the vehicle. Yeah, one example of this is California. Yeah, the MHTSA is trying to introduce standardization here. The Automated Driving System 2.0 guideline were published in 2017. So this was followed by Automated Vehicle 3.0 and 4.0, and the most recent document is Automated Vehicle Comprehensive Plan. The goal is to promote transparency and collaboration between business and government. The regulation environment is to be modernized and adapted for automated vehicles. The aim is also to prepare the transportation system for the safety operation of vehicle on a larger scale. Yeah, so it means the unlimited mass production. Yeah. Further, MHTSA created the AV test initiative. The goal of the initiative is to provide the public with direct and easy access to information about testing of ADS-equipped vehicle information from state regarding activities, legislation, regulation, local involvement in automated on the roadways, and information provided by companies developing and testing automated driving systems. In summary, for the United States, it can be said for the USA that testing of automated vehicle already takes place both in simulation and on test track, but also in real-world traffic, but is not uniformly regulated. So initiatives such as AV test initiatives are intended to create transparency and acceptance of the system among the general population. So work is also underway to improve harmonization and revise the regulatory environment to enable wide-scale deployment of autonomous vehicles. Okay, then I think it's time to hand over to my counterpart in CATARC, who will explain the update the situation in China, for autonomous vehicles. Qidong, please.
Okay, thank you very much, Chongmin. And I'm Qidong Zhao from CATARC, and now I will briefly introduce the regulatory framework in China. So starting from many years ago, different Chinese ministries started to formulate regulations regarding ICV production and testing. As you can see, the first important regulation released by the MIT, MPS, and MIT in 2018 is the Road Test Management Specification for Intelligent Connected Vehicle, also known as RTMS for ICV. This RTMS regulation is mainly used to apply for road testing certification for vehicles and also the demonstration area certification for different cities. And for CATARC, we were responsible for formulating the technical part of this document. And after the release of this document, vehicles equipped with AD or ADAS system started to be legally tested on public roads. And the next milestone is the release of production enterprises and the production market access management guidance for intelligence connected vehicle, also known as a PETMAC for ICV, and in Chinese it's 准入. The document is released on April 2021, and unlike the RTMS, it's mainly used for testing purpose. The PETMAC is used for the OEMs that produce L3 or L4 AD vehicles, as well as their vehicle products. And this document will be applied to both companies and products. For companies, they are required to provide the certification or reports to prove that they are capable and qualified on developing and producing AD vehicles. And for vehicles, they have to be assessed by certification authorities or testing organizations to prove that they can safely and properly perform in the real world. Similarly, CATARC provided resourceful technical support to the authorities when formulating this regulation. And to save some time, I won't go into details of this document, but actually all the popular concepts such as simulation testing, ODD, cybersecurity, functional safety, SOTIF, OTA, EDR, etc., those are all well covered by this regulation. And this is pretty much everything about the Chinese part, and let's get back to Chongmin. Thank you.
Okay, Qidong. Yeah, it seems that China already now transferred from testing to demonstration. Yeah, so it will be very soon that for the commercialization for the ICV. Yeah, thanks. So then I will also go to European Union. Yeah, so for this important market, I think at European Commission is the implementing act. This regulates the application of regulation 2018-858, which is the type approval directives for vehicle within the European Union. So right now, the highest level of an automated vehicle under the type approval directive can be level 3 with ACAS, yeah, so far. So from 2022, the type approval directive will be extended by the General Safety Regulation 2.0. In addition, allow is to be drafted that will allow level 4 AD systems in defined operation ranges will be published under the GSR 2.0. Yeah, but let's take a look at the current GSR 2.0. This includes several driver assistance systems and offers further step in Europe towards automation. Yeah, examples for needed system are the intelligent speed assistant or an emergency link keeping system. So this system must be installed in newly type approved vehicle as early as 2022. But this is just one step towards automated level 4 driving. As already mentioned, the EC plans to publish level 4 directive under the GSR 2.0. Yeah, but for this, Germany seems to get a pioneer position with its own level 4 regulation and directive. This level 4 directive with its scope, approval process, and main requirement I will present shortly in the following slides. Then we come to Germany. Yeah, it's a member state of European Union. Yeah, Germany, as I mentioned, is a pioneer market. Yeah, so Germany has chosen a national single path for a law on autonomous driving. Yeah, for this purpose, the Autonomous Driving Act and the Autonomous Vehicle Approval and Operation ordinance were created. So it enables the level 4 autonomous driving functions on public road for national series of vehicle in defined operating area. So within the directive, this distinction is made between mobility as a service and individual transport. The focus of the AFGVB is on test vehicle and less on individual vehicle. Yeah. Nevertheless, individual vehicles can also be placed on the market. For this purpose, there are requirements from the regulation that I would like to describe shortly below. There are different requirements, yeah, for the vehicle. So among other, there are requirements on the functionality, test and validation methods, data storage, cybersecurity. So these requirements of AFGVB are comply to the specification of the UMECE and the EC regulation. Yeah, so this supplemented by requirement for the owner and technical supervision of automated vehicle. The AFGVB is prior to the German road traffic regulation STVZO and the road traffic approval regulation STVZO. It is suspended under the Road Traffic Act, so which will become an update for level 4 and 5. This means that German road traffic law applies in the same way like other vehicles. But what is the process to get a vehicle on the road under AFGVB? I will explain in this slide. So there are 3 bodies involved in release of such a vehicle. The highest authority here is the Federal Motor Transport Authority, BMBI. This deals with the release and the permission of automated vehicle and the general operation license. So the next body involved is the Road Traffic Authority. So this authority approves the respective route here. Distinction is made depending on the road used. However, it is too time consuming to go into detail here. So the local approval office issued the registration for the individual vehicle, issue the operating permit, and make it a registration. Yeah, simplified, this can be described by handing out the license plate. After this step, the vehicle can be used in public road. Okay, so as we have seen, yeah, the 3 key messages of my presentation are that the first regulatory basis have been created, like ACA's German L4 law. Yeah, so that's the gap between technology and regulation, and the standards is getting smaller and smaller with the new regulation, especially for AVs. So that there are still missing items that need to be closed. So this means that we need harmonization to enable the way to the goal, but more and more is happening in the direction. So another step is how to test against this requirement. Regarding the IAMTS, can be said that the activities of this 4 working group, as I showed with the core task and focus, are in line with the regular activities. So this is our presentation about global certification for L4 vehicles. So I hope with the support of the IAMTS, with TÜV and all of our partners, I think we can make everything possible, for the autonomous driving vehicle. Thank you.
Thanks, Chongming. Thank you for the presentation. Right, so let's jump straight to the next panel. Charlie, you're there?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep, loud and clear.
Yes.
Hi, so Professor Ying and Donna, if you can also share your screen. Qidong and Chongming, please stay with us. I will have some questions for you. We'll join in on our discussion. But while they open up their screen, Donna and Professor Ying, I'll make a quick introduction. Thank you, everybody who have listened this far. We have one last session after this panel hosted by MCity. But due to timing, we may shorten our discussion a little. We understand China may be going into lunch. And we also have a video for you after about more information about our working groups. But first, I give some time to introduce Professor Huiling Ying, who is a professor at Tongji University and Vice Director of the Sino-German Center of Intelligent Systems. She'll be giving a quick introduction and talk a little bit about a test strategy for AI safety in connected autonomous vehicles. And we'll have Donna Kars, who is President and CEO of RoboWatch Industries GmbH and Kars International, authorized as Chief Strategy Consultant for IAMTS Asia Pacific Region and Special Delegate of IAMTS Executive Committee, as well as General Co-Chair of ICCVE 2022 in Europe and Asia. Thank you for joining us. So Professor Ying, go ahead, you can share your screen and make a quick introduction. Thank you. Professor, are you here?
You're muted.
Okay. Yeah.
No.
Thank Charlie for the introduction. It's my pleasure to attend this panel discussion. Today, I will introduce briefly our research on AI safety test strategy for intelligent vehicles. AI is a crucial technology for intelligent vehicles. AI models are based on probabilistic modeling, which incorporates random variables and probability distributions, so they suffer from uncertainty and limitation. They sometimes lead to incorrect or unexpected behaviors that would very likely cause dangerous consequences. For example, in the first fatal crash of Tesla driver, Tesla autopilot environment perception system failed to recognize a large white truck crossing the highway and a bright blue sky. Deep neural networks, DNN, have been widely used for environment perception. Understanding the relevant influence factors in diverse driving scenarios is an important step towards developing and testing the DNN models. In this context, we propose a DNN safety test strategy, which analyzes DNN's robustness and generalization ability in diverse driving environment conditions. Robustness against perturbations and generalization to unseen data within the ODD are both important KPIs of DNN models. The test strategy takes both the special characteristics of DNN and the driving scenarios into combined consideration, which can benefit the triggering conditions analysis of DNN limitation for sortive safety of the intended functionality. AI models learn to map inputs to outputs by extracting features in the data. We take weather conditions as example of influence factors. The data distribution in bad weathers are different from the data in normal weather. We define the data in normal weather as source domain and the data in bad weathers as target domain. The test sub-strategy A is a basic test. The training, validation set, and testing set are both from the source domain in the normal weather. This basic test provides basis for further performance comparison. B is a separated test sub-strategy. The model is trained in the source domain, but tested in the target domain. So the generalization ability to unknown bad weathers are evaluated. We record the field corner cases in the target domain as augmented data. Then we mix the original training data in the source domain with the augmented corner cases in the target domain as new dataset. This new dataset is used to train and also test the model for the test sub-strategy C. It devotes itself to fill the gap of domain discrepancy between source domain and target domain, and to test the performance of new trained model. After iterative training with data augmentation, it can evaluate and help prove the robustness and generalization of the deep neural networks. Okay, that's all for my introduction. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Ying. Very good, very interesting. We hear a lot about AI in China and around the world. Toming and Bolin, please stay with us. I'm going to ask a quick question to Huiling, and I'll ask you as well. Professor Ying, I have a quick question for you. In IMTS, we actually hear these three terms quite often: the AI safety testing, the SOTIF, as well as functional safety. And so I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the relationship of AI safety with functional safety and SOTIF, briefly.
Okay, SOTIF is an extension of functional safety. SOTIF deals with performance limitations instead of EE failures. AI methods improve the intelligence level of vehicles, but they are potential causes of performance limitations. Their specific characteristics, such as training-based error rate and non-transparency, lead to weakness and limitation. Our test strategy has the ability to identify conditions where performance of the AI model could be limited. For example, low level of confidence performance, low level of confidence associated to an object detection with heavy rain weather. These identified triggering conditions can be shared with the upper level system develops so that they can take appropriate actions on the system level. Okay.
Perfect. And I wanted to ask Toming, from a testing organization perspective, what do you think of that relationship between the three and what Professor Ying has just presented as a test strategy?
Okay, yeah, thanks, Charlie. I think the functional safety SOTIF and the artificial intelligence safety test is quite important for autonomous driving technology. What I want to say is I think it's a roadmap. Yeah, so as we know so far for functional safety, I think we, the decades we focus inside the electric and the electronic architecture. So it means it's an in-system, yeah, inside a vehicle. Yeah, so it will guarantee that the vehicle, especially in the low-level autonomous driving, yeah, level 1, level 2, or partially level 3, yeah, the minimum safety, yeah, with the in-system, the redundancy, yeah, let's say, okay. And then the SOTIF, I think this is the next step, yeah, because the SOTIF, the scope, yes, you need to consider the external, yeah, uncertainty. It means, for example, the interface of the sensors, yeah, so the physics parameters, yeah, and of the sensors, and also the latest, I saw the SOTIF standard, they already including the HD maps and also V2X. So this is all out the system, yeah. And of course, for level 3, and one scenario we also need to consider is the human, yeah, misuse. because humans still there in the loop. But anyway, I think the SOLIF is the extension of the functional safety. So there will be a lot of scenario-based testing is required. For this level. The automation. And the next is Dr. Yin just mentioned the AI. So this is quite challenging. For us. It's a tech company. So how to evaluate it? So our thought is it should cover a holistic way. So it means safety, security, and also ethnic performance and the legal requirement. We need to have a holistic approach to really evaluate maybe via a black box test. To ensure that the AI model in the full life cycle, it means the data, the component, all in compliance with the state-of-the-art requirements. So that's my understanding. So about the functional safety, SOLIF and AI from the TIC perspective. Charlie.
It's very good, and it was just perfect. I wanted to also ask Qidong, as sort of a regulatory agency as well. What do you think of Professor Ying and the AI test strategy? I know this is an area highly talked about still, and especially from a validation perspective, right, Qidong?
Yes. So first of all, I have to say I highly agree with what Dr. Yin and Chongming said. So sort of my answer can be quite similar to them. So I have to say the AI technology is something new to this industry, and AI could solve a lot of new problems, but it also brings new risks as well. So functional safety is mainly used to solve the problems arise from system, hardware, or software failure. However, if there is a potential insufficiency of the algorithm, that is not something functional safety can deal with. And actually, this is sometimes where SOLIF can come in. And for example, if the image recognition algorithm does not work well when the lane line is partially covered by snow or something else, then this is the part where AI and SOLIF intersects. So that's
Thank you. Very good. And I was also going to mention we do at IAMTS, we do a lot of work in that area of lane markings and physical infrastructure, as well as also correlating that. How do you then interface the ADS system or how the ADS system interfaces the infrastructure. Thank you so much. I'm actually going to give now Donna an opportunity to introduce herself, and then we'll ask a little bit less technical questions. So Donna, if you want to share your screen real quick, and can you hear us? Yep, I see you.
Hello,
good
Charlie,
night, good
thank you so
evening.
much.
It's very late for you. Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us. Go ahead.
It's good. That's good. Thank you. So I would prefer to speak in Chinese. Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm in Germany now. I'm very glad to be here. 3 days ago, I received invitation to take part in this meeting. I did not know who will be here or how many Chinese people will be here, or how many German people will be here, or those from the US. Therefore, the title is called A Chinese Market Prospects. However, in my opinion, such a topic is also being considered by our European and American friends over the past 20 years. When we are studying China, what do we discover? Not only in China, but also in Germany and in the US. They also face the three issues. The first one, challenge and opportunity. First of all, we have to consider what opportunity and a challenge there are in China. We have to ask ourselves, what opportunities and challenges there are in Germany? For each topic, there will be 4 answers. In the interest of time, today, I'm only proposing these prospects or topics. We can delve into the questions in detail after the meeting. I should say that, in my opinion, technology and scenarios are the most is a common ground, a common topic for China, US, and Europe. What about the areas with the risks? I don't think the first one is technology or scenario. Rather, they will be from the differences in a regime or rules or countries. We have differences in ways of thinking, social regime, organization, and also on the stipulations. Differences in these areas can also be reflected in R&D. In that case, the R&D team of autonomous driving vehicles and the testing teams of the vehicles or the validation engineers must have differences in their ways of thinking. For example, in Germany, we have like 20 years or 10 years of experience. 10 years ago, they're coming here to China to visit. We had very professional translators and interpreters back then. When translation is done, people were silent. I didn't know why. One told me, because we have different roadmaps in technology, we have different ways of thinking. We're able to translate what was being said. However, we are not on the same page. We have different topics that we're interested in. With so many years of failure, or with so many cases that we have studied, we discovered that we're still in the initial stage of discussion rather than being industrialized or being marketed. So what is our challenge indeed? Challenge is also a risk. After a full understanding of challenge, we'll be able to review the real opportunity. So who is our partner and the customer? Chinese enterprises should also ask themselves, both big and small, who their partners and customers are. In other industries, people may say that as long as you're lean or small in size, you're able to accomplish. However, it's impossible for all the tasks to be accomplished by a large mega enterprise. But in Germany, there are small enterprises who are very good at R&D. So we have to identify who our partners and our customers are. Essentially, who share your ways of thinking, values, and technology system. They will be your partner and customer. Our IAMTS is one example. So who share the strategy of our alliance? Then we have the foundation for cooperation. It also applies to different companies. When we are seeking global partners and customers, we have to consider these commonalities. We consider whether you have structural similarities. These will be potential partners. Number 3, apart from the differences, how are we going to work together? I'd like to make 3 points as a way of thinking. Number 1, we have to do things step by step. For example, in AO4, then when is AO5? In many enterprises in Germany, they're still migrating from industrial point 2 to point 3. Therefore, we have to do things step by step. For example, when we're talking about a value of technology, they have to be scenario specific. They don't cover all scenarios. For example, spring, autumn, or summer, or winter. We have to be season specific or scenario specific. When we count number of projects for our center every year, or number of PhDs every year, or key research fellows every year, we have to find out the connections between each case. How do they accomplish their jobs? When we consider our ways of testing, we have to make sure that all things are connected or related. Like 15 years ago, RoboWatch had a very sophisticated autonomous driving system. TÜV is the testing agency. 18 years ago or 16 years ago, the colleague from TÜV didn't see a real-world autonomous driving vehicle. But how was he going to accomplish the testing job on behalf of TÜV? When we are carrying out a testing, we have to be case-specific. We must have representatives who have experience R&D in autonomous driving vehicle. We must have a consultant to give guidance so that our system will be more complete. Number 3, to be rigorous or to be vigilant. For non-experts, they have to learn about such information from the public media, be it journalists or spokespeople, and they have to make sure that the wording of each term is concise and accurate in whatever language. Our alliance and our association can make a bigger difference in the communication of such information across the 3 continents. That's it for me. Thank you. Thank you.
She is one of our invited advisors, consultants. She's also newly enjoyed, and I believe, Donna, the word that you're trying to say was really ecosystem. So I have one last question for the panel, and feel free to answer whoever would like to, but I'll ask Donna first to start. And the question is, so do you believe for commercialization of highly automated vehicles, and either from your perspective or from your work perspective, do we need global collaboration?
It depends. 很多人就会说我们当然需要国际合
Some
作。
people say we need international cooperation. Now, as an advisor for international cooperation in industries, people may ask, you will definitely say yes, but I would rather say it depends. Yes and no. Why do we need international cooperation? To what end do we need international cooperation? If you're going to reach a short-term success, for example, moving from point A to point B, in that case, you only need a team of PhDs or professors and advisors. You don't have to need international cooperation. However, if you define yourself as on a team and to accomplish a philosophy or to be a leader in an industry, or you're going to make a success within your lifespan, no matter it is national or international cooperation, such cooperation will be very necessary. IAMTS and businesses will have to contact or to learn from the best practice from Asia and improve the regulations in Germany.
I actually give this question to Toming as well. Toming, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, yes, I think I totally agree. Yeah, so if we talk about this issue, I think we should put our vision, yeah, under the globalization, yeah, and also now under the COVID, yeah, background, we also talk about the localization, yeah, sometimes, yeah, to avoid some risk. But anyway, for the autonomous driving, yeah, this technology, I think many things, yeah, we need collaboration and also keep each region, I think, a little bit different. Yeah, so but the basic is you need to understand, yeah, first. So that's why I think IAMTS is good, yeah, platform that we know that, for example, the scenario, yeah. So for the scenario, I think North America, Europe, and East Asia, I think it should be different, yeah. So climate, everything, the infrastructure is different, but we need to know it when we develop the product, yeah. Secondly, like the culture, yeah, like the ethics, yeah. So we always mention, especially for the AI, yeah, in the future. So we also need to understand, yeah. So that's why I think, yes, anyway, in the end, we will ended up anyway different, yeah, but we need to understand, yeah. So what is the status in other region, yeah, for the future cooperation and development is technology, yeah. So that's my answer, yeah.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry we're running out of time. I'm actually now going to hand it over to Dr. Peng, Hui Peng from MCity, who will host this next panel. Thank you. Thank you to the panelists.
Actually, Charlie, do you mean that I shouldn't present?
No, Hui, so you can,
sorry,
you can
presentation.
Present.
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, go for
sorry,
the
wrong word. Sorry.
Yeah, we can briefly go through your presentation and then we can continue the discussion straight away. Thanks, Hui. Hey, Alex. Hey, Georg.
Hi, Alex and George. Thank you for waking up so early. I know this is not the best time for the European participant. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
So I know we are running short of time, so I'll be as quick as I can. My name is Hui Peng. I'm the MCT director. So my job today for this talk is to talk a little bit about the world's first purpose-built test facility for connected automated vehicle. This is MCT, a very small facility. We're part of the University of Michigan. So we have a long tradition of automotive research, of course, and then we need to keep thinking about the future. And everybody know the future is connected, automated, shared, electrified. And MCT, when we start the public-private partnership, in particular, the design of the test facility, we think that we will focus on the connected and automated side first for the last about 6 years. So this is another view of MCT. Again, you can see that it is pretty small, but it has two parts. One more emulating the highway section, one more on the urban side. So I'll give you a quick tour of the various design and what scenarios can we test at MCT. So we are very close to the campus, and let me give you the tour now. Okay, so obviously we are not just about a test facility. We've been working with many partners. Here are the examples of the 8 different commercial softwares and 2 open source softwares with virtual MCT. Some of them you can see very photorealistic simulation of MCT. Some of them focus on virtual reality, driving simulator, or sensor modeling, and so forth. Our view of the future, of course, a lot of people have been focusing on simulation and lab testing and the real world testing. In addition to all those, we also focus on, for example, the augmented reality. This is an example of we are developing technologies to fool the sensors so that on a sunny afternoon testing at MCT, you can emulate, for example, rain or snow. We also work with Scala and Sumo, 2 open source simulation software So companies have been using not only simulations, but also real testing and augmented reality for their testing. So I will actually jump to talk about two major things we have been working on recently. Number one is the evaluation of highly automated vehicles, which we call that MCT ABC test concept. So ABC basically is building on the idea that we think the future belongs to a scenario-based testing process, but we also need to worry about accelerated evaluation, meaning we just don't have time to test millions and millions of miles. There must be a very rigorous way of approaching million-mile driving by using some math. We also need to worry about corner cases. So ABC means accelerated evaluation, behavior competence, and corner cases. And our definition of corner cases may be quite different from the definition by others. Where I think the ABC test, the cornerstone of that is a scenario library. So we have been working with the IAMTS Working Group 1 to come up with focusing on whether we can converge to a common set of scenarios. So here is a list of 50 scenarios. And the idea is that we think a highly automated vehicles, depending on the ODD, will pick only a subset of the scenarios. And then we need to worry about how to pick the scenario test cases in such a way that we achieve accelerated evaluation and corner cases. And the idea of the achieving accelerated evaluation corner cases really depends on how you choose the test cases. So this is a figure we borrowed from TNO. And the idea is that the real world, that's assumed it is described by the green ellipse. And the idea is that the blue ellipse are the scenarios we will be testing. And the question is, how do you choose the test cases within that ellipse that's as thorough as possible, and yet you achieve accelerated evaluation and corner cases. So we've been working with CATARC, AVL, TNO in general, and many others at IAMTS. And we have discussed on the idea of collecting data and building models and so forth. I'm not going to talk about the details of how to do this here, but collecting data is very important. So let me show you a demo that we run several scenarios, which represent examples of our ABC test.
In this example test loop, an ABC test car will encounter 7 different scenarios in a single loop. This test loop consists of 1. A highway merge, 2. A highway cut-in, 3. An opening door, 4. A deer in the road, 5. A crossing pedestrian, 6. An unprotected left turn, and 7. A roundabout merge. The test loop begins with the highway merge. The test car approaches the highway on an entry ramp. The challenge car remains in the right-hand lane, preventing the test car from immediately merging. A successful test would involve the test vehicle slowing down or coming to a smooth stop before safely merging, preventing the test vehicle from hitting the challenge vehicle. In the second scenario, the highway cut-in, the challenge vehicle approaches the test vehicle from the left and abruptly cuts in front of the test vehicle. A successful test would involve quickly slowing the test vehicle down to avoid hitting the challenge vehicle. Next, for the opening door test, the test vehicle approaches a stationary challenge vehicle from the left. The challenge vehicle's door opens abruptly into the test vehicle's path. A successful test would involve the test vehicle successfully swerving to avoid hitting the open door of the challenge vehicle. The fourth challenge places an obstruction in the form of a deer on a blind curve on the right-hand side of the road, directly in the path of the test vehicle. A successful test would involve the test vehicle slowing down and proceeding cautiously. For the next scenario, the crossing pedestrian, a mobile robotic platform representing a pedestrian abruptly moves onto the street into the path of the test vehicle. A successful test would involve bringing the test vehicle to a smooth stop, preventing the test vehicle from hitting the pedestrian. In the sixth scenario, the unprotected left turn, the test vehicle approaches an intersection. From the opposite direction, the challenge vehicle makes a left turn directly into the path of the test vehicle. A successful test would involve bringing the test vehicle to a smooth stop, preventing the test vehicle from hitting the challenge vehicle. For the final challenge, the roundabout merge, the test vehicle enters a roundabout. As it circles around, the challenge vehicle enters the roundabout, merging suddenly in front of the test vehicle. A successful test would involve the test vehicle slowing down or coming to a smooth stop, allowing the challenge vehicle to safely merge and preventing the test vehicle from hitting the challenge vehicle.
All right, so another thing that we have been working on these years is the concept of roadmanship. So I'll play a couple of videos showing Waymo test vehicles. And this is an unprotected left turn. You can see that the vehicle hesitate. Perhaps it wasn't very obvious whether it should or should not be making that kind of move. The second is the vehicle, the Waymo vehicle trying to make a left lane change, but it doesn't find the proper gap to go into there. So sometimes a lot of these scenarios are, there is no crash, the vehicles are perfectly safe, but people watching those Waymo vehicles say that there's something wrong. The vehicle wasn't driving nicely. So the question is, how do we understand that safety is not enough, but how do we define the behavior that we call that roadmanship, and how do we measure that? So examples of being safe is not enough. For example, this is the case that the car stopped too far away from the pedestrian. That's not good, even though it's safe. But another example is that the vehicle doesn't crash into the pedestrian, but comes too close. And that's not good either. So I think the question is, how far away is good enough, but not too far away? And another example is that the vehicle was doing something strange, weaving around or applying brake. That's too hard. That's not normal. So the question is that, how do you measure that? I'll be quick because of we run out of time. And what we do is that we are basically suggesting that roadmanship is a concept that you need to drive just like a human driver. And the question is, how do you learn from human driver behavior? So this is an example of unprotected left turn. So this traffic light may be a yellow flash light, in which case you can make a left turn when it's safe to do so. And we call that unprotected left. So what we will do is that we want to collect data so that the robot driver will blend into the local driving culture and behave just like human drivers. So this is example of we use some camera and we use some bird's eye view conversion, and then we extract the human driver behavior, and then we collect a lot of those data, and then we try to learn from how human drives. So that's the kind of one example of research we're doing. Similarly, of course, you can imagine how to drive in a roundabout is another possible question. People have been asking the question, how do you drive near a roundabout? What kind of gap should you take or you should not take? So this, we have been doing a lot of data collection like this. And the ideal future is that we think that we will be using the data collected by this human driver behavior, and then we'll start the testing, for example, for a roundabout or an unprotected left turn. Somewhere in the middle, if the gap was accepted, then we'll keep moving in one direction. If not accepted, we'll move in another direction. And then we look at the gap acceptance, and that can be the basis of judging whether the human driver is normal or too aggressive or too conservative. And the idea is that this may become part of, say, a 5-star ranking system. So these are examples of how we have been using MCT to do testing. Let me introduce, before I show the slide, let me say a few words about MCT operating system. So the concept of MCT operating system is that when you are doing testing, you want to make sure that these testing are automatically programmed, controlled. So therefore, it's very important that we have an operating system to go with it.
If we're going to realize the promise of AVs, we have a challenge. The simulation and track tests of today's driver assistance technologies will need to become magnitudes more capable. Scenarios that accurately represent challenging real-world conditions can quickly balloon in complexity. As you can imagine, coordinating all of the systems involved in even one scenario is quite complex, let alone repeating them or chaining them together into a fluid system. Having to do this coordination manually would add not only significant time, but we would struggle to achieve the repeatability of timing and position that we need to be able to measure and score the results accurately. Individual intelligence needs to be integrated into a single orchestrated system. To solve this, we created a framework we call MCityOS. MCityOS is a cloud-based tool we've developed that lets you create and execute complex AV test scenarios using an app on your laptop or smart device. Think of MCityOS as the nerve center for the MCity test facility, or for any test facility. It is able to understand the location and motion of everything, including the vehicle we want to test, and coordinate responses at the right time and in the right place. You can write scenarios in a graphical tool we've built called Skyline and load them into MCityOS. To make MCityOS aware of the vehicle we're testing, no complex instrumentation is required. Simply attach our positioning hardware to the outside of the vehicle and power it on. Frameworks like MCityOS play a critical and supporting role in carrying out the validation and verification tests on AVs as they become capable of handling the role of driving safety.
Okay, for the interest of time, I'll be stop sharing my screen, and I would like to call all my panelists to join me. And actually, for that matter, let me share my desktop again. All right. So can I please make sure that we have all the panelists, Bowling, Alex, Jochen,
Yeah,
and Bahu, Daniel?
Yes, I'm here.
All right, great, thank you. So I will be following, I will show the first question. And can I ask our panelists to just go all from this order, Bowling, Alex, Jochen, Rahul, Daniel? The first question is a quick introduction of your CAV testbed.
Right, I'll jumpstart. Thanks, everyone. So CATARC, as you may know, we have a multiple proving ground across the country for different purposes. But in general, my team focusing pretty much on the simulation or the digital twin kind of proving ground, most focusing on CAV testing, which is exactly what we're doing here. So it's quite similar to the MCity proving ground, has mostly the similar kind of functions and testing functions for with MCity's proving ground, and that's about me. Okay.
All right, Alex.
Yeah, well, good morning. It's a pleasure seeing all of you. And actually, I want to take it from the technology perspective. So generally, technology is meant to be developed and deployed globally, not only as a business model, but also to serve society and serve humanity. In order to deploy something globally, you need to test it. We just saw it very impressively from Huipeng. Thanks for sharing your MCity efforts, and that really showed how important it is to consider different ODDs, different use cases, and the scenarios that are linked to it to make technology deployable from a global perspective. And we as TÜV Süd, we are a global testing, inspection, certification company using test beds around the world with the objective of making technology globally deployable as a business model, and of course, to serve humanity and tackle all the issues we are facing, like high carbon dioxide emissions, traffic congestion, and so on.
You okay?
Yeah, so in our case, our testbed had an interesting history. So we, before the testbed actually was used as a testbed, we first had to tackle to develop an automotive research center, so a tech campus, which had different tenants, including university tenants, suppliers, and OEMs. And but this and the name of this campus is International Center of Automotive Research, Clemson University, or ICAR. But this campus had originally only virtual testing capabilities and some lab testing capabilities, and was missing a proving ground. And so we repurposed another business park close by that already existed since decades and was originally an airport into an automotive proving ground. And what we were doing, we were aligning the capabilities of the proving ground with the research capabilities of the other park. Well, and that led to the situation that we have right now, so that we are integrating virtual testing, physical testing, and we can also do some road testing, open road testing, all in a unified manner.
All right, Rahul.
Hello, everybody. I guess I'm involved in two test beds. One, which was started about 3 years ago, called SunTrax, which is next to the campus, and that's a physical test bed that is very similar to the many of the ones you've talked about. It's a large facility, and as we worked with the state of Florida to build that facility, we did an evaluation of all the test beds in the world, their capabilities and what the requirements were. And what became very clear to me in that process was that the virtual test beds would be way more important than physical ones. And further, the virtual test beds had to have an understanding of three things that typically are not well understood, which is kind of separation of concerns, because all modeling is really a function of the problem you were trying to solve. So the scenario that you want to look for sensor testing is very different than the scenario that you might care about for path planning. And so with that in mind, the difficulty, of course, in our industry is that most of the deep software bases are inside of proprietary OEM structures. So we went about trying to solve this problem by building an open source environment that was a complete environment with all these components based on AutoWare, but built a test bed on top of that upon which one could do research. And so that's the test bed that I work on. On the chat, I'll just put in a website where people can take a look at it and get a concept document that we've done. The whole thing is open source, so anybody can pick it up and run with it. The idea is, if you want to have a better weather model, you can easily integrate it in. If you want to look at localization and localizational algorithms and how to test them, you can do that separately. And use the rest of this environment. We'll be now seeding this environment with digital twin information from various places in the state of Florida as test sites. But it's sort of an introduction of kind of what we're doing and how. By the way, one of the very important pieces that MCD people have talked about is how do you discover things in the virtual environment, and then have a straightforward path through an OS like structure into the physical environment. And then how do you also go back, just as importantly. And I would just point out that while the mechanical scenario situations is one aspect of it, a very important missing thing typically is the electromagnetic aspect. How do you get variability in you know, radar noise sources and GPS noise and things like that in order to model realistic environments. So let me stop there, but that's the sort of work we're doing.
Okay, thank you, Rahul. Daniel?
Yeah. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. Yeah, so I'm sitting here in Austria, in Graz, and we have since 2017, it was mainly driven by the government, a test region, a test area called AlpLab, which basically has been created by just a couple of core partners. Those partners brought in their strengths and their expertise in order to set up, let's say, a test field with many different dimensions. The core partners are, along with AVL and Magner, those two, let's say, very well-known industry partners, are Virtual Vehicle and TU Graz and UNAM Research. Those 5 partners created this, let's say, commercial undertaking called AlpLab. And one of our, let's say, benefits is, of course, that we, from the beginning on, also included our Austrian road operator called ASFINAG. And the original idea was to show and to demonstrate that Austria is able to bring autonomous cars on the public roads, but also advance the testing technology. That means to come up with this, let's say, full picture, to have the public road tests, but also proving ground testing, the, let's say, model and software in the loop, especially looking at the full mobility stack that includes the onboard software, the onboard hardware, but also the offboard software that needs to be for training, for also for checking and plausibility, and to feedback real data of public roads to, let's say, further development and improvement. So this is the, let's say, the entire picture that has been drawn in 2017, and where we stepwisely increased that. And let's say, depending on the demands of customers, additional aspects are added, like currently AVL is, for instance, driving this topic of dynamic ground truth. There's an own product coming out there, or is already on the market. Currently, we are also working, that's a joint undertaking between AVL and Virtual Vehicle on dynamic sensor proving ground. That means to be able to show and at the same time saving costs, that different weather situation can be tested in, let's say, in a hall, instead of just always going outside and driving around, just to show that, for instance, issues like water spray, that's pretty crucial for LiDAR and radar, can be tested in, let's say, in a dynamic way in a specific hall, where you can actually also put in not only passenger cars, but also commercial cars. So that's a, let's say, a full set of different activities that are, and you could imagine, pretty difficult to coordinate. And there is every month a high-level coordination meeting to get this higher level. And of course, on a daily basis, the people from the different shareholders are working together to achieve the next let's say, the next goals. And one of the main things we are currently facing on is Austria recently became a Euro NCAP member, so the overall country is now Euro NCAP member, and that makes or brings us more and more opportunities, especially when working on the upcoming star rating for level 3, level 4, and level 5 cars. That's an ongoing process right now for the AlpLab, so for our testing field.
Okay, thank you. So you can see that this panel consists of people from China, from Europe, from the United States, who are involved in the design and operation of cyber physical test facilities. So my second question is, please tell us one nugget of wisdom related to the design and operation of the CAV testbed that you want to share with the audience here. Bowling?
Right. So I like the word nugget of wisdom because that is something we definitely have once we're having, doing testing, rolling out. So the problem for China, I think most of you should know that I think CATARC started to do the testing in 1980s and 1970s. And when that was the time, well, we're starting to having the experience from the Soviet Union, actually. That was the time when China and the Soviet Union was actually quite close. And then, you see when the time started to roll in the 90s and 20s, we're starting to catch up with, the United States and, Japan, et cetera, et cetera. So before the wisdom will be, we're basically a integrated kind of proving ground that actually involved with different kind of countries, which that was the case before. But now we're on the era of ICV testing. We realize, we actually we cannot learn a lot like by doing copy and paste from the other countries. Now we actually doing this by exploring the ideas, and that is something we actually have to come consistently doing in our testing bed. So you can see there are existing testing bed, and they have very rapid updating speed, which means, for example, we have a testing bed in Tianjin in CATARC facilities. They use 3G because that was first rolling out in the 2010s, and now they updated to 5G. Then this kind of things consistently coming. So it's burgeoning growth of this whole idea of testing actually are dramatically changing how we testing, how we do that. And that's why we found IAMTS very valuable to us, because now we actually can do one step ahead and make sure this thing actually are done in our testing to match up with everyone. But back to that point, the wisdom is now we realize not only trying to learn from the others, we're actually helping others to understand how the China market works with also the world. So that kind of that kind of role play we're actually changing is the basic hard part for us, and now we're actually catching up, and now it's pretty good for us. So, Alex.
Okay, thank you, Bowling. Alex.
Yes, thank you for the question. So, as I said, we are using and operating our tests on proving grounds and test beds around the globe. But I think the real issue is that test beds are heavy investment. So you need to invest into concrete, and to do the right investment. So the right investment means someone needs to use such a test bed. Otherwise, it's just concrete put somewhere. You need to know what and when to invest. And that relates again into you need to know what needs to be tested on such a test bed. And the issue here is, first of all, it relates to technology. So whatever technology comes up needs to be tested. The next issue is the vast variety of different possible scenarios, as you have shown, is the different vast variety of global regulations and standards. And it's super different. So technology is evolving faster than standards and regulations at the moment. And that automatically becomes a bottleneck. A bottleneck in that sense that investments into technology development have to be made, but this will simply, and believe me, it will simply not be deployed globally, those technologies, without having the right test beds and test infrastructure, which we need to prove new technologies safe. And that shows the dilemma. What is first, technology, which is heavy investment, or test beds, which is heavy investments, but both sides need each other. So that's the dilemma. And I think this is all at the end, the reason why we founded IAMTS, to get out of that dilemma and harmonize and understand what is required globally, what test beds are required globally in order to prove technology, automated driving technology, safe, in order to deploy this technology to the society. And that shows the dilemma, but also, and that's the good news, having a great team working in an institution like IAMTS with a great team, as you see, in solving that issue. And I also would like to I see Georg, I also would like to ask Georg, if I may, to give your perspective, because I saw you were not listed on the panel, but you, of course, you are a panelist. And I take that since I'm the chairman, so
sure.
I take that right to do so. Yeah.
That's fine by me.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
So good morning. Very excited to be part of the panel, even not being part of the panel. But no, thanks for the question. I was just as Daniel was speaking about the open test beds and closed test beds. I was thinking multidimensional about what are we going to do to advance being able to bring safer technology to the world, right? And I think a lot of it has been said already. On the topics of the test beds themselves. At the end of the day, the correlation of test beds with simulation seems to me the kind of trickiest thing to find. On one hand, to find the opportunity to take what we learn on test beds into the simulation, and contrarily to then re-simulate what we see on to re-simulate what we find. So to me, that's probably the thing that we should debate the most and learn the most. And in IAMTS, we have the opportunity to bring together the simulation and the testbed people. So that's the exciting part.
Well, I can also maybe give at least some of my experiences from the test beds. So I originally was in Munich working for BMW, and BMW has a proving ground right next to, basically in Aschheim, which is close to Munich, close to the R&D headquarter. And when I moved to the US, I was basically close to the BMW plant, and they had a proving ground there too, but with less capabilities. And then we noticed that there was in maybe a radius of 500 miles, there were all kinds of OEMs like Mercedes and Volkswagen, Korean OEMs and so forth, all in a close proximity. All have to test the same thing, but they, opposite to the headquarter, they didn't have the budget to build a large proving ground. So we started to think about, can we create a facility where those different companies can actually do the testing in a professional facility, but can share this facility. And it turned out it was very, very difficult because there are hurdles to collaborate. But then, interesting enough, over time, and in particular with the emergence of connected and in particular autonomous driving, it became clearer that not everybody can replicate a huge proving ground at every location in the world, next to every plant. And so, so some form of collaboration is necessary. And I think the M-City model that we heard about earlier is an open model. Multiple partners, so multiple tenants can share the same facility. They can configure their tests according to their needs, but not everybody, not every single partner has to build the same facility for himself. And I think that is something that we heard the complexity, we heard the cost of development, and collaborating and sharing facilities is an important element, but still allowing obviously competition. So that's something that I took on.
So who's next?
I think you are, Rahul.
Oh, good. Okay. I'm going to kind of go in a slightly different direction. So I was at the start of IAMTS, and I remember well when the IAMTS started, the general consensus was ADAS is solved. We have to worry about level 5. That was the general consensus. And I bring that up because I think getting ahead of the core elements of what makes successful technology can be problematic. And by the way, I don't believe ADAS is still solved, just as an aside. So the critical pieces that are missing and continue to be missing are the legal framework for all the countries industries is based on a very simple concept. What expectations are you going to set for the public on the product? And then once those expectations are set, that drives the validation structures. And the expectation cannot be, it's just like a human, because it's not a human. So I bring these topics up because until we get to a point where that basic concept is understood, it's very difficult to do the rest. To jump ahead, to normalize, to even set up a validation structure is very, very difficult without that basic, very basic capability, which, by the way, still does not exist, even in ADAS. Okay, so that's kind of one point I want to make. And the second point is when we look at things like scenarios and validation, these are very large, complex systems. It's very difficult to believe that we will validate these systems without access to internal points of interest inside the car. So the results of sensors being visible in some standard way, the results of perception being visible in some standard way, the results of localization, final localization being being available in some way. Because each of these are different aspects, very important aspects of the systems that probably need to be validated separately, and then you can look at the whole car. So getting back to the nuggets that, at least from my point of view, that we've learned is ignoring these two pieces is problematic, and it's very hard to make progress without explicitly handling them head on.
Okay, Daniel?
So I really like what Alex said before, that we still have this dilemma, and that's fully right. So we still, so the original plan of our community, of our, let's say, test facility community, is to offer tests to validate and verify AVs. Right now, there are, let's say, AVs very rarely on the market. We just see the S-Class coming up with level 3 prepared, level 4 prepared, but with many constraints. And we still use our test facilities around the world to develop and to learn and to still do research in both terms, to understand AVs, but also to understand and to improve our V&V process. So it's still a certain way of doing applied research because there is right now no one who says, I would exactly need those tests for self-certification or for here in Europe for type approval. It's not yet there. So there is no clear plan what kind of tests are needed. That's why I think here in Austria we decided to go first for the Euro NCAP, because that's tangible, that's clear, that the next steps are there. And that means also for level 2 functionalities. We have to improve the Euro NCAP protocols and so on. But basically it's still a way to go before, let's say, we as IAMTS can really come up, let's say, with a clear testing protocol, which, let's say, which facilities around the world could make sense or do make sense to do this certification process or the type approval process. Right now, no one actually can tell you how many miles or kilometers have to be driven for one false positive or for one false negative. It's not written not in the SODIF, not in the ISO 26262, not in UL 4600. It's still not there. So no one actually can tell you what is the residual risk, the operational risk, how to quantify it. And there are still research projects going on there to understand what could be the residual risk, but it's pretty clear for instance, for airbag deployment. There is a clear number that has to be fulfilled, and then you will get the approval. We don't have that right now for, let's say, for the perception system, which is one of the most complex parts of an AV, or what Rahul just mentioned, localization. What means in terms of safety and also in terms of security, how safe and secure should localization be, how to quantify that. And so that's my opinion, a long way to go. We are the right community to hopefully be the first to understand what OEMs really will need, or the newer OEMs, so not the traditional ones, so that people like Alex from, let's say, from certification bodies can give a green light that such a system is safe enough to be part of the daily traffic.
Okay, very good. So thank you. I know the time is 11:52, so let me jump to one question. I know we have prepared more questions, but let me jump to one question, and let's see whether we can converge to some very nice future direction for how we work together. So the question is this: IAMTS is all about international coordination and standard harmonization. What do you see as the biggest challenge of such global harmonization, and what would you like to see happening in the next couple of years? So, Spolling, we start from you.
Right. Okay. Since you jumped, I think I tried to conclude all the questions into one. So I think the reason why CATARC is very interested in IAMTS and why we're doing this is so also similar to what we're actually missing in CATARC in China is that the reason for harmonization is we need to align with everyone. So for example, right now, CATARC, most of the customers are Chinese-based. That means we can only providing scenarios or testing facility to the Chinese customers. I'm pretty sure TubeSuit and AVL has Chinese customers, but they're also doing a bunch of Europeans and US customers as well. That is something we're actually lack of. And the harmonization brings CATARC into this platform that actually can exchange not only the customers, but also the scenario, the data, which that's what I actually envision IAMTS can achieve. Because at the end of the day, we can all say, oh, we can achieve level 4 today or tomorrow. But the problem is we need to make sure that is being challenged from the global scale, then everyone on the same page. Everyone can agree that the things, the vehicle, level 4 vehicle you drove on the Germany roads and the US road can also be applied on the Chinese road as well. So that kind of harmonization, the symmetry between information, symmetry between customers, symmetry between the services, between all the global world, that is something we're actually looking for. That is also why CATARC also are heavily involved, trying to involving other Chinese participants in IAMTS, also major Asian or Asian Pacific as well. That is our duty and our job trying to do this for our position. Alex?
Yeah, thank you for that question. And as you probably saw at the beginning of today's symposium, as I said, there's a vision. We want to have zero emissions. We want to have zero fatalities. We want to have zero traffic congestion, because that simply costs time, and time is money. It doesn't matter where you are, by the way, on the globe. So, and to achieve that vision, I think what is super necessary is that we do exactly what IAMTS is doing, and this is what I would like to see in the next future, in the near future, that we have kind of a, let's call it, cultural change. Forget about silos at those new technologies and disruptions we have to face as humanity, and collaborate. And with collaboration, I'm talking about bringing together the best stakeholders and experts that you can find, and work on best practices without any political or cultural limitations or hurdles. We should work, and this is good. So we are all, or most of us, are engineers or technicians. So we know we can, technology is neutral. So we can work on technology on fact base and try to work out best practices that will enable those new technologies to achieve that vision. And the biggest hurdles, I would say, it's one of the hurdles for sure is the distance. And this distance increased. Even we have that video meeting capabilities now. I believe at the end it's humans that need to collaborate, and for real collaboration you need to meet. You need to also have a beer together and so on, if you like beer, or just have some food together. I think the biggest challenge is the distance, and the second challenge is not technology. That's not, I mean, it's just a question of investing and having the right researchers and the right developers in place. But it's the cultural differences and still this way of thinking in silos, being it regional silos from US, Europe, and Asia. So regional silos, or being it vertical silos in the industry. Take the traditional automotive industry. They are super verticalized, but horizontally, there is almost no, I mean, it's improving slowly, but really no real collaboration. And last sentence, I believe no country and no industry and no company in that world is able to tackle this challenge of automated driving by itself. It needs to be based on collaboration.
Yeah.
So that's my statement here.
Yeah. One quick comment, and I know we are running out of time, but I wanted also to, I think we need something what I call a global reference architecture of cyber physical test beds, so that where we have that common ground, and with that reference architecture, we support the collaboration and support knowledge sharing, because it gets into that common architecture. And I think that that is something hopefully IMTS can accelerate, from my perspective.
Yeah, I'll just say something quickly. By the way, I found it amusing that the German says beer is the answer, but anyway. You know, I think, you know, this idea of harmonization is an interesting idea. I just wonder from an endpoint point of view whether that will actually be the endpoint. That is, will we have common sign-off structures globally? In fact, I kind of doubt it, but let's see what happens. But I think what will be common will be the methods, the underlying engineering methods that will get developed, and that's obviously a place that this group can be extremely useful, because those are expensive. They're very specialized in nature, and I think they will get reused even if the endpoint is going to be a specific sign-off structure having to do with the use model and environment that the car is going to be built on. I think the biggest challenge I see is everybody's walking around with a future model that mimics the past. So everybody wants to think about, passenger cars. That is the past, but I think it's extremely likely the future use models will splinter, especially in the AV space, and these methods that we're talking about here will be more, will be useful in different ways, and even in form factors. For example, would not surprise me at all if last mile delivery robots become much more interesting well before passenger cars. And they will have a different form factor relative to the spectrum of safety that we're talking about. So that's, so I think to the degree that the group can be sharing information, and especially underlying methods, underlying thought processes, that's extremely useful, because even whether we're talking about a delivery robot or we're talking about an agricultural or mining robot, there's a commonality in how we approach those problems.
So I see a hand raised. Sorry if I pronounce it wrong.
Oh, that was me.
Yeah.
Just a quick, because
first thing, I apologize if I'm totally wrong. I'm sure I'm totally wrong.
Just wanted to say something brief on Horst. So the methodology, all fine. I think harmonization at the end of the structure. Actually, what we're seeing is that in each country there are very smart people. They are going to figure out how to regulate this, right? Nevertheless, yeah, and this is what we do in IMTS. It's not, we're not, at the end of the day, we can't influence the structure of how to regulate it in the end. That is influenced internally if they wish, whatever. But we all face the same issues. We all face the same challenges, right? We're industry, and we see the same topics. And if I do a test in China and I do a test in the US, I know that it's not easy to coordinate and blah, 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 right? And so I need to figure out as an industry what it is to bridge these differences. And that's really the focus of the collaboration. And understanding what these challenges are gets me to the methodologies, yeah, but exchanging on the methodologies doesn't even, let me understand what the intent of them is and where they are strong. So in IAMTS, what I find so gratifying is that as we talk about the, let's say, day-to-day challenges, or as Daniel said, the future challenges of this of validation in HAVs, we kind of figure out, we need a methodology for this and that, and then we go and think about what it could be and put our heads together. So I'm pretty positive on this.
All right. So before I let you go, sorry, enlighten me. How to pronounce your first name? Again, I need to learn something today.
Georg, but I've lived in so many countries. I've been called anything.
I'm in the United States, so of course I say George.
George,
right?
George is good. George is good.
Georg, we're looking for a harmonization of your name.
Yeah.
We will start working.
We'll do if we solve that problem at IAMTS, that'll be the first step.
I need to teach you how to say it in Chinese straight away next time. So I just want to make one last comment. I think a lot of stuff being discussed here will be involved in the working group 1 in the IAMTS. So please stay tuned. Joining us in IAMTS, you will have more discussion on this. Absolutely. So
let's give Daniel a chance to say something.
Yeah, please, Daniel.
Sure. Maybe a very, very short comment, because a lot of, let's say, very valuable topics have already been addressed, and just catching up where Georg left off is, it's so different, and talking about scenarios in different countries, that's one thing. The other thing is what we might distinguish is just using the term that we introduced many years ago for electrification, purpose design and conversion design. Right now we have, let's say, people movers, all those fancy new cars, that's purpose design, while what we see all around and what we just have seen in the video of the M-City is conversion design. We just take a classical level 2 car and try to convert it to something level 3, 4, 5 capable, and we have to view that in a different manner. And Joachim, you just mentioned this global architecture. Yes, that definitely makes sense, but it will not go for both designs. So it might go for the purpose design, but it will never, that's my opinion, never work for the conversion design, because there's a huge competition, and everyone needs to earn money, of course, and that's going to be a bit difficult. And that could be a nice approach.
I was talking about
to
the
distinguish
testbed
a little bit.
architecture, right? So the reference architecture for the testbeds itself, not for the vehicle side. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah.
Okay,
so
so
that could be, and just one final word, because talking about having a beer or something else, there will be this nice conference that is also supported and heavily supported by IAMTS next year in Florida. Rahul and Joachim are basically driving that conference, and that could be a good opportunity. So it's prepared also to be hybrid, but the main idea is to meet at Florida Polytechnical University. And have a great conference in February.
We have beer in Florida. I just want to let everybody know.
I'll bring you one from the barrier.
I think it's the unifying factor.
It's a unifying factor.
Global language, yes.
Thank God we're not just drinking seawater.
It's the global harmonization language.
Exactly.
Okay, so I know our European friends just woke up, but it's midnight for the United States attendees. So, and in China, people need to go to lunch and so forth. So I'll return the floor back to you, Bowling, or whoever, Charlie.
Yeah, I'll continue with this. So just before I give back to Shrai, who's the host today, I just want to tell everyone who's attending, there's about almost 100 people actually watching, debating at this moment. So, we're having a big crowd. So I'm pretty appreciative you're staying up late and wake up early for this meeting. So I give back to Shrai. Right.
Hello. Okay, gentlemen, I think today's symposium is nearly ending. I think it's very brilliant and resourceful, and many thanks to all the speakers, especially from European and American, Mr. Alexander, Georg, Joachim, and Charlie, and Professor Peng. Right now it is midnight in United States, and I think early morning in European. So many thanks to the effort to you.
But somehow in Michigan it's sunny still.
Sunny. Yeah. IAMTS is very great aliens, and we are growing up. So today we got many guests here. If you are interested about us, just please scan the code and join us. We have following many other symposium will be organized and will be released and published through the internet and over our WeChat group. Yes, and Mr. Alex, do you want to finally say something to Chinese guests?
Yes, thank you, Shuai. First of all, I would like to thank CATARC for arranging and for all your very strong contribution to IAMTS. And of course, a big thank you to all the panelists and the contributors to IAMTS and this symposium. And of course, to our friends from China. So I really like China. I've been living in Asia and spent so much time in China. And it's great seeing such a large audience joining us today at IAMTS. And I really hope that the pandemic will allow us to meet again soon and have a beer or whatever. And I'm really looking forward to contribute with the work of IAMTS to the Chinese industry, to automotive industry, to the Chinese testbed operators, and also the other way around, receiving the very valuable experience and know-how from our friends in China to increase and enable technology development and deployment. So thank you very much for joining this event, for your contributions, and I really hope seeing all of you soon in person. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much. So today's meeting is successfully finished. And goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.